Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, June 20th, 2017 meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. We know that the meeting has been officially warned because we actually met at 5:15 to do interviews for the weigher of coal position, and then we went into executive session, and now we are here. So I guess our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the June 6th meeting. So would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 6th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion passes 5-0. Chair's remarks, I have one remark that if I don't say, I'm going to be in really big trouble. This is going to be the last meeting before July 4th, so I need to remind everybody that the town of Brattleboro has a 4th of July parade on July 4th at 10 a.m. and then the events move to the park, and Carol Lolata's here, and there's family events, and there's food, and there's music, and there's games and everything, and then at night there is the fireworks. So we hope everybody comes and enjoys a great day. And now I know Peter has actually substantive things to talk about.
Very substantive opportunity for the community to come together and celebrate 4th of July. I've got four updates on various things that are going on. So the first is the pool opened today. So at 1 o'clock this afternoon, thank you, Carol. And to the contractors who made that happen. And then an update on yesterday's rain. The impacts were pretty vivid, memorable for those who were downtown and at the appropriate particular times yesterday afternoon. Fortunately, we didn't get hours of sustained really heavy rain, and so the damages in the areas that have a drainage system worked. A more substantial drainage system. Those drainage systems took away the water pretty quickly after the rain slowed down and stopped. So we saw that on Main Street, we saw that on Flat Street, places that were really problematic at the height of the storm. Those issues didn't last for that long, but out in the farther reaches of town and a couple of spots in town, we did have some damage, particularly on gravel roads on the external portions of the town. So I want to quickly note that it was this extensive. We actually had washouts and damage that's going to require rebuilding of portions of roadways on Bonnieville Road, Akeley Road, Melchin Road, Covey Road, Abbott Road, and Heinsberg Road, as well as South Street. Black Mountain Road suffered the worst damage. There's actually two small sections, but still two areas of Black Mountain Road that are closed still as of this evening. Emergency vehicles can get through, and people who live in those sections can get through, but they're closed to the public. And there's some substantial remedial work going on there as well. William Street, we had an area that washed out, and Western Avenue, we had an area near the Creamery Bridge where we lost, didn't lose sidewalk and roadway, but the sidewalk and roadway were undermined, and there was repair work that had to go on there today. So it was pretty extensive. We don't yet have a total tally on it. We believe it'll exceed $25,000 worth of repair work. There won't be a federal designation of this as a disaster. It was not widespread enough and enough property damage to require that. But the state does have a program that might kick in. It's not clear to us yet whether, here in Brattleboro and around us, there was enough damage that the state's program might kick in. But if it does, they call it the Town Highway Emergency Fund. And if our costs exceed $58,000 for this storm event, 90% of it, if that state program is activated, and if our costs exceed $58,000, then 90% of our costs for this repair work would be covered. It's not yet clear to us that our own costs will be that high, and it's not yet clear to us that the state will declare that program active. But we also wanted to just mention quickly that there is some other work that Public Works was getting to, both construction work and finishing up the painting of the lines for this season. Those pieces of work will be delayed because of the repair work that takes a higher priority that I've just described. And we wanted to acknowledge that there are private properties all around town that have suffered damage as well, driveways and other property damage. And we're doing what we can to help refer them to the appropriate resources so that the private property owners also can get their properties put back in order. On a brighter note, back in January, coming out of the Route 30 corridor study, some recommendations for traffic calming between Cedar Street and the area that's just north of the Westover Park. The town made one sort of low-hanging fruit ask, or first action ask, of the state, which was to leave the 40-mile-an-hour temporary speed limit that's in the construction area underneath the I-91 bridge, to leave that in place as a permanent speed limit after the bridge construction is complete. The state did some work around that. It was unclear. So the initial data that came out of the state's staff indicated that it didn't support leaving it at 40. It would support actually raising it back up to 50, but that was subject to a hearing of the state traffic committee. That hearing was held this past week on June 14th. And thanks to a concerted effort between people in the community, our legislative delegation, and Rod Francis from the town staff, the committee heard the local concerns that were expressed and voted to leave the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit in place. So they only asked in doing that we devote some local resources to enforcing that speed limit, since people do come through there exceeding the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit routinely. And we indicated that as resources are available, we will do that. So. And finally, just the reminder, I mentioned this 2 weeks ago tonight, and this is similar to the 4th of July parade. This is the last opportunity before the 1st of July to remind the community that we do have the upcoming change to single stream recycling coming, and so people who have participate in the curbside recycling program and want to just keep doing exactly what they've been doing can do that. But people who want the convenience of being able to put everything into one bin can start doing that on Monday, July 3rd. Those who have brought materials to the Fairground Road drop-off site in the past won't be able to do that anymore as of July 3rd, but will be able to take materials out to the Ferry Road Wyndham Solid Waste District site. And those are my voluminous comments for tonight.
You
Thank you.
stole my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
John wanted
It's
to
all
announce that. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports?
I did. Oh, no, the only other thing is that we did have another fun waste management district meeting, and the only thing that's still on the table is the selling of the MRF equipment. They still can't figure out, when to do that, so it's still up in the air, but everything else is moving along smoothly. Solar and everything, which is nice.
I did have a quick, we did a nice traffic safety committee meeting on the 15th, and we addressed a few different things. We watched a video that had been produced previously about how wheeled people who are using wheelchairs have a lot of trouble in certain sections of town, and what homeowners, as well as the town, we have a lot of work to do with those sidewalks and curbs and such, but how homeowners really can help with curbing back their bushes and not leaving your recyclables out all day so that people have to go out into the street and back up again. And then more significantly, perhaps, we found out about an application through the Wyndham Regional Commission and BT Trans to get a safety evaluation for that section of Route 5 that's going to be used more and more from NECA, where we have no sidewalk coming through. So we're going to be working with the state, if I'm correct, in getting a safety assessment, and that's the first step into getting some real relief, because that whole area will not be really dealt with for another couple of years. So we can hopefully get some temporary relief on that very dangerous section so that we don't have a serious accident.
And NECA's starting using that building now, too.
Yeah.
Have they?
Yes, they have.
Okay, so I thought they were still waiting for some equipment.
No.
Oh,
So
good.
so that's really good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So it's perfect timing.
Yeah, well, we want people to be able to safely walk there
Yeah.
as well as drive there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Brandy or David? Does anyone in the public have anything they would like to say about an issue that is not on the agenda? Yes, sir. Please come up, and if you could say your name and where you're from, and The microphone does not make it louder here. It's for the television. So when you speak into it, and you don't hear that you're any louder. It's not that it's not working.
So I have to speak loud enough so you can hear me.
Yeah.
My name's Stanley Line, and I have a motorcycle shop on Platt Street. And I'm basically here because there's a water problem that's been there since whoever knows. I have photographs from 1938 and 2011. And I lost a ton of money in the Irene. And the other day when it rained so hard, I was extremely lucky in that John Allen pulled up down there. And he got to see firsthand what it is. Also extremely lucky in that Peter called me right up. And because, of course, I stirred the pot for the whole town, yelling at everybody I could that would listen, mostly Jan, but Peter called me up and that was great. And so basically I'm just here to start the process of whatever we have to do, because it's a bigger job than just saying, you know, we need this or we need that. I really don't know anything about it, so it's up to somebody that knows more than me, but I certainly would like to have the water not come in my shop every time it rains like that. And it's been a long time. Steve Barrett's really good. He comes immediately because he knows I could have a temper tantrum at any minute, you know. But I would just, you know, and I'll talk. I gave Peter a little, whatever the computer people call it, little thing you plug in there. It's got some film because it's not a lot of people come down there. The biggest damage we had the other day was from the cars going through because they see this huge mud puddle and they say, I have to go 50. So the water was at my knees, but when the cars went through, it was up here.
No wake zone.
To my shop.
It was awful.
So anyway, I'm just here to see what I can do to do something, anything to try to alleviate that water pressure or the water's problem.
And that's why I wanted you to come, Stanley, is because I really wanted to get this out, you know,
Right.
because the problem down there is that it is the lowest spot in
Very
Brattleboro.
lowest spot in Brattleboro.
It's the lowest spot. And in a half an hour, 45 minutes after a rainstorm, it's gone. So,
Right.
and people go, what rain?
Right.
Well, what puddle? You know, it's like the one on Main Street.
Right.
And it goes and then it's gone. But you incur the wrath of that for
I do.
the hour that it's there. And I did see the cars go by, and I'd probably, and Public Works is probably going to be mad at me, but I told Stan, I said, yeah, absolutely, put your truck out there and stop the traffic. I said, it's, you know, I'll help you with that. But
Yeah, they're actually quite good about it, you know, because
I know.
they know, you know, they were
Yeah.
actually quite good, and I'm sure it's totally legal. But,
It is.
But, you know,
But I was so mad when that car went by and just inundated his shop.
Right, right.
You know,
And-
it's
and the
not
worst
cheap
part for me
stuff
was I
that
just
you
bought
have in
these
there.
shoes. I said, I'm not wearing those shoes out there, so when he came, I was barefoot.
He's gonna cut him, so I said, this is great, this is gonna be another. But I'm glad that you spoke up, and I think this is the process that we have to go through and really, and try to
So-
speed this along, because it's
But
been
yeah,
a long
so
time.
anyone has any ideas, you know, among all the other ideas you have to have, you know, I'm open to doing whatever. If you can get a hold of me, Peter, and just say, hey, you know, this, you should do this, or you need to do this, or I'd like you to do this, I'll do anything.
So,
Yeah.
so there's a short and a long term, and the long term is just that. You know,
Right.
it's going to take some
long
analysis
term.
and some
Right.
planning and some budgeting. And,
Right. Well, Steve-
so it'll be a while before we actually construct an improvement
Right.
there, but because it'll be a while, and because we do all recognize the magnitude of the problem when rains come as heavily as they did yesterday,
Right.
we know that you do need to prevent folks from flying through there, and you're at a fortuitous spot where people can go up the
one of the
little
only
part of Elm
places.
Street and then back down and move on. And, you know,
Right.
you're just right at that spot. So, talked to Steve Barrett about it. We talked a little bit today. He was very busy with the variety of other locations around town that I spoke to earlier. But we did talk about the fact that we will need to look at this for a long-term solution. And in the meantime, we'll loan you some barricades.
Great,
Because
that's great.
you need to be able, it'll help us to not have to go down there with barricades
Right,
when the
right.
big storms come, and we'll know that you'll be able to put them out there instead of putting your truck out there.
Right.
It'll be safer for you and safer for the public.
Right.
So.
Well, it's just like the rain. It all starts with one drop, so this is my first drop. You guys helped me with it, so.
Fair enough.
You know, whatever you can do is great, and, you know, and once in a while I'll give you a shout and say, hey, what do I do now?
Right.
You know,
Thank
and then maybe you'll move along.
Well, I don't want you to think we're gonna drop the ball on it, because it's
No,
been,
yeah.
like you say, you showed me the picture from 1931,
Right.
and there was water there then when it was a garage.
It was an oil company.
Oil company.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so, and then the picture from Irene was just
Right.
I mean,
That's a whole different thing though, but
exactly. But for this, yeah, I just want you to know that
great.
we'll try to keep it moving.
That means I'm gonna go get on your bike tomorrow.
There you go.
Thanks, Bruce.
Good.
Thanks.
I just gotta fix my bike.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stanley.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to say something that is about something not on the agenda? Oh, yes, Daniel. Please say your name and where you're from.
Hello, Daniel Quip. I live here in Brattleboro. I also organize with 350 Brattleboro, which is a climate action group. I don't know if this is appropriate, and I'm going to direct it at you, Mr. Elwell. You mentioned talk about the Route 30, the spot near the new bridge. And not this spring, but the spring before, there was a Safer Streets Forum. And at that event, there was discussion of a bike path that was proposed sort of where the shoulder is on the right-hand side, going up to the new bridge, and the possibility of like a bridge going over to the West River Trail. And I haven't heard about anything since then, but I did hear a rumor in passing that it was off the table, and I was just curious as to whether or not we could find out whether that is true.
So that was the corridor study that I referred to, that from which we went quickly to try to preserve the 40 mile an hour speed limit, because that was the more urgent matter and the thing that could be done just by a state decision rather than by anybody spending any money and creating a change physically out there. And so, fortunately, the state did approve that. There is a whole body of recommendations, actually some that are very extensive changes to the roadway itself and would create a separate bike and walking and running path alongside, and then others that would be smaller scale changes that would involve more paint and less physical change in the roadway, but would still create narrower lanes and a better demarcation for bike lanes and so on. All of that is still very much in play, especially the less expensive solutions. The state is going to come and do a resurfacing project through that section of roadway in the next few years, and we hope at the very least that at that time there would be the opportunity to do some adjustment of the lane widths and the other things that would allow a better sharing of that roadway space. It's possible that the more ambitious recommendations could be implemented, but it will take a good bit of funding for that. Like $1 million is the cost estimate for the bridge, and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the work on the path.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. And furthermore, I sent Brandy an invite to join me and a couple of other people on a bike ride around town as a kind of a learning experience of what it's like to cycle around Brattleboro. So I just want to kind of go on record as saying that email was sent. I'm excited for you all to join us, and I look forward to seeing you all in your bike shorts. Thanks.
I don't know if you're going to be that excited about seeing me in my bike shorts.
Is there anyone else in the public who has a comment about something not on the agenda? All right, thank you. We're going to start with unfinished business, and the first is about the issue, a follow-up about the diversity in the community and on the town staff conversation that we had at our meeting 2 weeks ago. And just as a quick recap before I turn it over to the town manager, the board at the meeting 2 weeks ago we voted on 5 bullet points, and in essence what they were to accomplish is widen our reach as a town, to make it so that more people know that we have jobs available, provide training not only for the town upper management, but for all town staff and the select board on diversity and inclusiveness, whatever the word is, issues. And we also directed the town manager to come to us with some kind of plan on more of a community-wide diversity initiative, if that's the right word. So tonight, the town manager is going to give us an update on all the tasks that we gave him at the last meeting.
Thank you. So quickly to note the follow-up to the initial actions that you did take, we did create within the town's website a specific page called Promoting Diversity in Our Community, where we have posted various documents, some of which we've created, some of which were provided to us by people in the community. We've got a link to the IamAvermonter.org website at that location, and we will continue to build that part of the town's website as we continue on with the work around this issue, and there are additional things to post there. We also did issue the news release that announced to the community the request that I had recommended and you approved, that we're seeking help from anyone and everyone who wishes to be part of this process to get onto a list of people to whom we will send every job opening that we have in town government, so that they can then share that with anyone that they want to share it with. They can, post it and send it out far and wide, or they can target specifically to somebody they think is really well qualified, or to a particular group they think should know about the ad. So each time that we do our normal advertising of positions, we will also distribute our job notices to whoever signs up for that list. In the preparation, my initial work in the week or so following the last select board meeting, working towards the goal that you identified of bringing forward a plan for how the town can launch some additional community engagement around these issues, so that it's the focus of that would be not just about what the town with a capital T and the town government can do, but also what we as a community throughout Brattleboro can do together to be a welcoming community, even more so than today, and to build around actions that others have already been working on here in the community for some time. You heard about some of that from some of the folks who spoke last time in the meeting. It became really apparent to me very clearly, very quickly, in trying to prepare myself to offer some advice about how we can launch some additional community engagement on this, that we can't effectively do that without having a better understanding of the work that's already going on and has gone on, and understanding from the people who are involved in that work where they see gaps that the town might be able to fill, or at least add value to the work that's already going on. And so I describe the character of what I believe we need to do next, and then I specifically ask the select board to give me some additional time. And this is in my memorandum dated June 16th, which is my update to you from the work that's gone on in these last couple of weeks related to your last meeting. And specifically what I'm asking for is that, and you don't need necessarily to take an action on this unless you choose to, but what I'm asking for your consensus around this evening is support for these three next steps: that I will continue to meet with stakeholder individuals and groups to learn from them about their work and their ideas for how the town can effectively launch the community engagement part of our actions. I will issue a news release inviting anyone interested in assisting the town on the broader aspects of this matter beyond just town staff recruitment to contact me, so that I can also learn from their experiences and ideas. The purpose of the second bullet being, we know very well who some of the folks are in the community who are especially interested in these issues and have been rolling up their sleeves and working on them. But I don't know everyone who is doing that, and I want everyone in the community who has an interest in the issue to be able to be part of this continued learning that I'll be doing before I come back to you with specifically recommending what I think the town can do to help launch more community engagement. And then I will develop a set of recommendations for select board consideration to address community engagement, town training, and any other potential town government actions that arise from my communication with the stakeholders.
I don't like to always start, but I'll just start. I'll start anyway. I appreciate, first of all, the work that you did, but I also appreciate the fact that we had a 3-hour discussion 2 weeks ago, which was incredibly informative, and we had the group that does workforce issues, and the chief, the town has somebody on it, it's Chief Fitzgerald. So I think it was a good conversation. I think it was a great jumping off place. I felt that there was an energy after the meeting. I mean, we were all it was 9 o'clock and we'd been all talking to each other for 3 hours, but I felt that there was an energy and a desire to do something and to do it actually right and do it well. And I think what I appreciate about this plan is that's what the intent is. Your intent is to do something and to do it well. We also talked about the select board has a very focused thing that we can actually do concrete actions on. And that's why I think it is important to bring it out to the community and get other people involved as opposed to just ourselves. So I appreciate this a lot.
Thank you.
And I usually don't like to talk first, but I did, so.
I agree with Kate. I appreciate seeing that, you know, we're not the experts here, and making sure that we have everybody that we need from the community at the table, and then letting them be the experts that they already are. I think that's smart, and I think moving slowly with intention is the best way to come up with a holistic plan that all of us in the community can buy into.
Anybody else have any comments?
I would just echo that. I think it's essential that it's a community conversation, not just a conversation among 6 of us up here.
Does anyone in the public have any comments about the plan that we're thinking of having the town manager start on? Nobody has any comments? Good. That's a thumbs up.
I have a question.
Yeah, please come up and state your name and where you're from.
I'm Becca, and I'm a business owner in Brattleboro. But I guess there was some discussion about a diversity board in the last meeting, and I don't know if maybe you guys just mentioned it and I just spaced.
Yeah.
But
You mean like a committee?
yeah, like a committee of not select board members.
Yeah, there was a lot of things, there were a lot of ideas that bubbled to the surface, and what we did is really ask the town manager to look at all those ideas, but not look at them just on his own, to actually reach out to the people that are already involved in this issue. And that may be something that comes out of it very clearly. So we don't want to be so insular that it's just, as Tim said, it's just us. But all the ideas and all the people that were at that 3-hour discussion, I think we want them included into the discussion, and that may be something that comes out of it.
I don't think any of us on this want to be the direct leaders in that once we bring it down to the community. Outside of what we can actually implement, I think we want to make sure that the real experts are working to lead the conversation.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, I guess so. The idea is that people will come to the select board meetings to discuss it.
No, actually,
Oh.
what we're hoping is that it doesn't just stay in the select board
Right.
room. We want this, if it's going to be a true community conversation, it needs to be outside these 4 walls.
Yep.
Because-
Absolutely.
Space.
Yeah, it needs to be other people leading it and not just us, because we recognize, we don't think it should be us on a community level.
I
There
guess
needs
that's
to be-
what I'm
Yeah.
kind of insinuating, I guess, that maybe it would be, you know,
Better.
better
Yeah.
probably at maybe the Root Social Justice Center or someplace that's
Pretty much
more.
anywhere.
Right, anywhere else.
Right, anywhere, but
Yeah.
as long as it's kind of like clear and there's so many different organizations that want to be a part of it, and so,
That's right,
you know.
Yep.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Dave.
Well, I was just going to ask if you know of organizations that are interested and they haven't heard from us, then to please encourage them to contact the town offices, because we want to hear from them and we don't know what's getting out. You know, we're trying, well, actually, Peter and the staff are trying, and, you know, we want everybody.
Okay.
I want to make one other thing clear about where we go from here. So the time that I've asked the select board to allow me to understand better what's already occurring and where the town can add value as opposed to just doing something is meant explicitly to allow me to engage with the people I know are already working on this. So, but then there's going to be other people I don't know are working on this. So as I work through that process and I get myself prepared, play my advisory role to the select board, get myself prepared to come back and suggest where I think we can add value and how we can sort of launch but not own that community piece. It's important that we be respecting the significant amount of work that's already been going on in the community for a long time. So you mentioned Root, and that Root is certainly one place where a lot of that work is going on. And then there are other places as well, other organizations and other individuals who've been very active around this. So what we want to do is, it became clear to me as I was trying to come back to this meeting and say, here's what I think we ought to do, that I don't understand enough yet about what's happening to give any good advice to the select board around that. I need to engage personally more with those who are doing the work. Then I'll come back and offer my advice, but everybody who's involved in this will know what advice I'm offering and will be invited to say at that time if they think that, you know, the process that I'm suggesting makes sense, or if the process that I'm suggesting is flawed in some way from their perspective. We'll have probably one more meeting that'll be a lot like the last one, where there's going to be a large group of people in this room advising the board of their opinions about how the town can add value versus just holding a meeting. But after that, in whatever way, you know, whatever decision comes out of that process, then there will be a process that needs to be outside this room. It's unequivocally clear that for it to be, to have a long-term positive impact for the community, it's going to need to be something that we do together as a community, not as a town government, and out in the community, not right here in this room.
And we would probably go to those meetings and gatherings, but we wouldn't go, you know, all sitting together in a row. It would be, we're sitting next to you, we're in the community looking forward at the people who are leading just as much as anybody else.
Yes, please come up to the microphone and tell us who you are and where you're from.
Well, I'm Pete Nickerson, and I've been here for 4 years, and 66 years on the wild side of the Mason-Dixon line. I'd like to ask the question about diversity. I'm old school, I like to have definitions, and all I've heard so far is sex, color, skin, and sexual orientation. Don't you have a wider definition of diversity than that?
In the first memo that I provided to the select board on this 2 weeks ago, we spoke specifically to that aspect of this issue. So the goals of the work that we as a community will do around this are going to differ for different individuals that are involved in that work, and that's, you know, what ultimately comes out of the process that's not yet well defined is can't be known to us. It's going to be what we together as a community, not as a town government, make of that. But in the opening to this conversation, I offered on behalf of myself and the town staff that diversity is indeed about the legally protected classifications of people that involve some of the categories you mentioned and some other categories too. But it's also about other ways in which diversity exists and matters in terms of the fullness of a community. And so, you know, with people with different backgrounds, people with different education, people who are differently physically able than one another. We have people with different levels of financial security. There's all different kinds of ways in which there are measures of diversity, but what happens with the conversation and what become the focus areas of the conversation as it goes forward in the community is something that really needs to be determined in the community.
Well, Peter, I'm a phobic. I have to sit over there in my safe spot by the door, and I'm not being recognized, and I represent about 9% of the population. So I get a little galled when I hear race, color, sexual orientation only. Our world is much more diverse than this, and I'm being kept out of things, and people with phobias are being kept out of things, and many other types of people with problems are being kept out of things. So it's just not black, homosexual, or female. Not at all. I'm the only one sitting over there by the door. I can't sit at the front of the bus.
Yeah, and please give us your name and your town. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
My name's Kim. I'm from Brattleboro. And I'd love to at some time invite you to a Lost River Racial Justice meeting. I do want to say that, yes, I fit the category of female and queer. I also fit the category, as you can hear in my voice, as socially anxiety, disability, although I don't look at. And diversity is about all differences. White people have different diversity amongst ourselves, Black people, First Nation people, all of us. And I do support this movement. And what I see personally is that there's not anybody being left out. And I appreciate that, and I want to support that. And I will make it known to my group to reach out to you.
Thank you.
And I want to say that I see you over in the corner, and I have anxiety too. So, me personally, I'm taking your feelings in consideration too. I think we should take everybody's feelings in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't think it's the intent on anyone on the select board to leave anyone out, and I very much appreciate what you just said. Thank you, and I know I forgot to let you say
I just
something.
wanted to, we have real constraints and real boxes around what we can do and what we can't do, so we have to be really careful. And one of the things we're really careful about is hiring really good people to be parts of our staff. So I want to read to you the section from the first memo that Peter wrote about this on June 1st. While some individuals or groups may be interested in promoting diversity by supporting opportunities for particular classifications of historically underrepresented populations, staff believes that commitment to diversity as a guiding principle requires us to value diversity in all its forms. And I'm reading slowly because we have American Sign Language people here. This involves valuing diversity in all its forms. This involves measures of diversity both for legally protected populations, for example, race, religion, biological sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, age, and/or disability, and for other populations, for example, people with both public and private sector work experiences, people who have worked locally and in other states, people who have worked in similar and dissimilar organizations, people with a variety of educational backgrounds, people of all shapes and sizes physically, people of different economic circumstances, and/or people with a variety of long-term goals. Applying this broader perspective, the town employee team already is diverse by some measures. However, we value diversity by all measures and recognize that we have much room for improvement in some areas.
Thank you, David.
So that was where we started the whole process.
I just want to point out that just if there's a certain group that may be louder or maybe more vocal or whatever, I think we as a board really have to take in everything. I mean, that's the only way we can do this. And like with anything, we've seen it, you know, people get excited about certain things, and it doesn't mean that one group is right, one group is wrong. It's just that we as a board have to listen to it all and make a judgment on that. And again, I've been quiet about this for a couple meetings, but the only thing I want to say is that the select board can only do so much. And like everybody I think so far has stated on the board, this is a community effort. This is just not the select board's problem. It's the whole community, and so the whole community has to come together. This is an issue that's been going on for thousands of years. I mean, we're not going to correct this overnight. So I just think we all have to just put our heads together. Come to the meetings, you know, come to as many meetings as you can. Let's just get it out and start talking about it. But I just don't want it to be like the select board is going to come up with some miracle. what we can do is cast a wider net in our hiring. And I think that's about as far as we can go. I mean, we can try to get dialogue going with people because that's what Peter does. That's one of his jobs, is to coordinate people and to get them talking. So I think that's where we need to end up, and that's where we have to start. And it's going to be a long process. I hope people don't think this is going to happen overnight, because it's not. This is going to take a while. What we can do in our policy, we can enact that quickly, but it's still going to take time. Did that make any sense?
It did
Okay.
make sense. It did make sense. Oh, yeah. Dale, please come up and tell us your name and where you are from.
Okay, I'm Dale Joy, I'm from Brattleboro. And the last time I was here, after that, I was in a car accident, so I haven't been here for the last couple of times. But I had a conversation with you about, somebody brought up advertising as affirmative, and you shot it down. But what about when you do your hiring, is just putting it as an equal opportunity? Because then minorities of all kinds, whether they're disabled or whatever, they will feel like it's open to them.
Yeah, that is actually
That is
something we
our
do
policy.
already do. And
You do
it's
put
the
it
very
as-
first line of the application,
Absolutely.
employment
Okay.
application.
That's what I was wondering.
Yep.
Yeah,
Making that real is the problem.
That's right. That's right. Does anyone else on the board have any comments? Does anyone else in the public have any comments? I don't think we need to take any formal action, but I think we just, oh, yeah, please come up and give us your name and where you are from.
My name is Esler, and I'm from the area around here. I would like to first say that I am happy to be on this Pennacook land that we are standing on from the Pennacook people. I just felt like I need to speak a little bit. I just came from Detroit, Michigan, and they're doing a lot of amazing stuff. And what you were saying is true, and I echo that. It's not just about the town government, but the people. And what I saw in Detroit, it was a lot of community projects that were going on. And what I also saw was the government was not as involved in those community events and community spots. So I just came in, so I missed a lot of maybe what you said. But what I heard was coming to events that the community hosts. I come from the Root Social Justice Center. I'm a collective member there, and we do have a lot of these conversations and talk about how can we increase diversity, right? When we speak to diversity, we also have to acknowledge that we come from a past that is not always the best, right? We just didn't just come up in Vermont being white. That was not just a thing that just happened. It's not like the people of color don't like Vermont. That's not true, right? That is not true. We have to acknowledge that the history is filled with darkness, that the sterilization of women of color was just in that institution that is the retreat, you know? A lot of bad things happen there of people of color, and we have to acknowledge that. And I just want to put that on the record that we need to acknowledge our history so we can know where we're going to, right? And we have to start thinking of the future generations. Yeah, we are not going to probably solve this now, but we have to start right now, and this is great. I'm so excited that this is happening, and I look forward to inviting you to the Root and have these conversations. And how can we even tell other people that, from like I said earlier in my last meeting, we need to start opening up to other communities around the country, because they are being targeted. They are being targeted by this government, the government in the whole United States. So we have to start, and just in our Vermont here, like the migrant community is being targeted. So we have to acknowledge all those things. And again, I'm so happy that you're doing that. And I look forward to working with you and many community events. And yeah, thank you.
Ezra, can you stay right there? It's Ezra, right?
Esler, yeah.
Ezra. So you said something at our last meeting that really made me feel really good about where I think we were going, and that you felt safe in this community, and you felt like it was one of the better communities you've come to. you're still feeling that way?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Good.
yeah, I do. I feel like this is this community is great because of the work that a lot of people have done to
Exactly.
creating this, and this is and I hope that when I and if I happen to leave this area, that the people that come after me have a better place because of the work that I put in, and again, this is a collective work that we're all into it, right? We all want to make this place beautiful. We all want to heal this beautiful earth. So I think, yeah, I love this place and I love this community, and I'm excited to see what we come up with.
Good. Thank you.
So I think, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to say that let's try not to forget that all of us are part of the community. We put on these hats up here because we were elected to do so, and volunteers doing this stuff. And we're putting in our time for very little money because we want to make our community better. So we're all in it together.
And I just want to say it's a lot easier to do the work when people show up. So
Yes,
thanks for
thank
showing
you.
up.
Yeah. We'd like to see seats filled as opposed to not. So I guess our next step is Peter is going to probably give us updates on a regular basis when things happen. And in the meantime, you're going to be working on some kind of community engagement plan that we hope to have the community involved in, not just us. And as Brandy said, we prepare to go to these community involvement places, but we don't want to be the authority figures looking down, because that just, I think it defeats the purpose of the whole thing. So does that sound good to everybody? And
Sounds great to me.
and we'll just keep moving forward. Great.
Does
Thank
that
you.
feel?
Does that sound good?
Okay.
And again, if you know people that want to get involved, the town manager's office, give them a call. Because it's a situation where it's the more the merrier. And
Now that we've had this evening's meeting, and I know that we're all of like mind about how to proceed, I'll be reaching out to start setting up those appointments with the folks that I know I need to go out and see and learn from about what's going on out there. But I'm also going to put a news release out within the next several days, so that, similar to the news release related to hiring, I want there to be one about this process that says, if you're out there and I haven't called you, here's how you can get in touch with me, because it's going to be really important for me to hear from, especially those voices that may have been involved in this and care a lot about it, but be less visible. Thank you.
thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys. Now we're going to go to a regular item on all of our meetings, which is the police fire facility projects update.
Tonight's is brief. Next time, on July 11th, we will actually be asking for approval for a few additional items, some of the finish-up work at the two stations. Tonight, it's just an update, and the work is progressing well at both locations. No surprises, no issues have arisen. We actually are still on schedule, where in just a little over a month, we expect to have the work sufficiently complete at the police station that the police department will be able to begin the process of transitioning from the police station here in this building to Municipal Center up to 62 Black Mountain Road. And we expect that by the end of August, that transition will be complete and the police department will be fully functional at that location. And at Central Fire, August will also be an important time, because that's when we expect to make the transition within the building be less visible to the community. But in the phasing of the work, there'll be a time when the chief and his team move around within the building to go into space that has been renovated, so that the remainder of the building can be renovated between August and November, when we expect that project to be finished and the fire department to be fully functional at Central.
So by the end of the year, everything's going to be done.
That's our expectation, unless we bump into something between now and then.
That'll be
Right.
exciting. Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions about the police fire project?
They're
update?
looking great.
Yeah. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on the police fire project?
Believe how fast Central's going up.
No. And we have no action we have to take.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody, because it's exciting that it's rolling along on a good pace. Now we're going to take up new business, and the first item is the financial report, and I think there are two issues. John O'Connor's going to give us an update on where we are now, and the monthly report for May, and then David Scholes had an issue about transferring some money from the capital into the capital fund. So I guess we'll let John go first, and then we'll talk about David.
Okay, thank you, Kate.
Or have David talk about his issue.
So included in your packet is the May financial report. As of the end of May, we are 91.7% of the way through the year. General fund expenditures stood at 87.4%. So again, we're doing better than expected at this point. Doing the prorations that we do every month, and if we make those prorations, that would bring the percentage down to 86.3% of the annual budget. The utilities fund was at 88%, and parking was at 95.9%. So parking is running above their budgeted expense levels. Their revenues are also above the budgeted revenues. The primary driver for that overrun in expenditures is the snow plowing. And it was a very large expense last winter for the parking fund.
We had a lot of snow last.
You spent some time in your truck.
Yes, I did.
So that's where those funds stand. Solid waste disposal fund, revenues were at 83.4%, expenditures 81.2%, and we still have the May bag revenue, curbside collection costs, and tipping fees that will be recorded until June. So those are not reflected in the May report. Loans, we have $50,822 in loans outstanding. We had one loan that was overdue and one loan in default and fully reserved. Program income, we have $461,426 in available funds for additional grants and loans as of the end of May. And finally, the grant report shows a great deal of information on 49 active grants and 13 grants that are currently in the application process. So that is a summary of the financial report for May. If anybody's got any specific questions, I will definitely try to answer them for you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, just a quick one. John, 13 is a lot of these are for the small business grants or loans?
Yes.
You have 13 in the hopper right now?
Oh, no, you're talking about the 13 grants in the application
Yeah.
process?
Yeah.
These are grants the town is requesting from
Oh.
various organizations.
I was thinking the same thing.
It
We
came
don't have enough
quickly
money.
after the loan
Right.
program, so.
Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that would have been exciting, but
That
we
would
don't
have
have
been
enough
really
we don't have
exciting.
enough money. It was scary.
Yeah, good problem to have.
Yeah. So does anyone on the board have any questions about John's financial report for the month of May?
I have a newbie question.
Yeah.
How long do I get for newbie questions?
Forever.
A year.
Forever.
I got 4 years.
Oh. That's generous.
And counting.
What is, and anyone can answer this, what is railroad revenue sharing?
That's a payment from the state based on revenues the state receives from the railroad, and somehow they've got a formula that they share it with the municipalities.
Okay.
So it's all state-driven, state money.
So we don't really have control, we just sort of get what we are
We
given?
get what they give us.
Thanks.
For the 4 miles of railroad that we have.
I have a question, and I don't know if I've asked this before. I may have asked somebody, I can't remember. The state of Vermont is starting to collect taxes from Airbnb owners, but they're collecting it directly from Airbnb, the platform who I don't know if I've asked this to somebody, who collects it from the Airbnb person. Do we?
Good question.
Is there some kind of formula where the towns get any of that or not?
Well, in Brattleboro, we have the 1% rooms and meals, so if they're collecting from an Airbnb in Brattleboro, they should be collecting the additional 1%.
Now, the thing is, they're collecting the state is going to Airbnb itself, like the big wigs on Airbnb who are collecting it from the locals. So the state isn't actually going to each local Airbnb, you know what I mean? So I'm assuming, are we left out of the loop because of that?
We are out of the loop. But Airbnb should be aware of what the rooms and meals rate in Brattleboro is.
Right.
And they should be collecting that from their B&Bs and passing that on to the
So
state.
that's going to the state, and the state should give it back to us.
They should be giving us the 1%.
But that whole industry is changing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think states are realizing how much
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
is
Right,
involved
but
in
the,
that.
yeah, but the issue is though, we're
Right.
not getting
Well-
what they're collecting.
Right. And they just started collecting though. I mean, they,
Right,
And we don't know that we're not getting it.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we could be getting it. We
Okay.
just don't have that detailed information.
right. We're getting rooms and meals and we really don't know where it's coming from.
That's right.
Okay,
I guess you could find out.
Yeah.
We're trusting, we trust.
I know, we shouldn't
Well-
trust anyone.
So that's one of the impacts of Vermont being a Dillon's rule state. There's a lot that the state controls and keeps
Yeah.
a very tight grip on, and there's several sources of revenue that are pretty mysterious to us. There's some of what comes to law enforcement, the railroad piece, the rooms and meals piece. These are sources of revenue where the state collects them and then remits a portion to the town. And we have at times attempted to get detailed information about these different sources so that we can see why certain changes are occurring. And as John says, actually the answer we get is pretty much, you get what we send you.
Right. Right, okay. I'm gonna make it my mission now to figure it out. That's good to know. All right, does anyone else on the board have any questions about the May report? Does anyone in the public? Dale, and then we'll have Michael. And please state your name and where you're from.
Okay, I'm Dale Joy, I'm from Brattleboro. With the Airbnbs, I know a lot of people here in town that have them. And I know that I have to have a license to work in this town for what I do. Why don't the Airbnbs have to have a license to work in this town? And if they did, then you would get something, at least $50 a year. But the other thing is you can always trace Airbnbs because you go online and you just put in Brattleboro and it'll tell you the whole list of all the Airbnbs here.
Yeah, and that's how the state's figuring it out.
Yeah, but some Airbnbs, like up off of Western Avenue in the back, they don't charge very much. Then there's others that are up Putney Road and in Black Mountain and out in Guilford, they charge a lot because they're farms and stuff. And people don't even know they exist. And that's why you see people coming and going on those farms a lot. They're vacationers. So if you look online, you can find them.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah. Thanks, Dale. Michael? And state your name and where you're from.
Michael Bosworth from Brattleboro. I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the beginning of the meeting and might have gone over some of this, but it may relate to the next discussion about David's question. So John just reported on our status through the end of May, right?
Right.
So based on yesterday's flooding, will June be more expensive than we thought?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry, will we what?
Will June be more expensive than we
Yes.
thought? But we don't.
Yeah, we are aware of costs that will exceed $25,000. We're not sure how much higher than 25 it will be. We've got about somewhere between a dozen and 20 locations around town where we're having to do repairs to various parts of the roadway system. Some of those are really small spot repairs, and some of them are going to take quite a bit more work. And today was day one of getting at it. So we don't have a full assessment yet, but we believe it's going to exceed $25,000.
And $25,000 is sort of our normal allotment for a month for repairs?
No. Every penny of that $25,000 is unexpected expense
Unbudgeted.
based on yesterday's storm.
Okay, thank you.
And you probably weren't here when Peter was explaining it, that if we get to a certain level, there's maybe a state program that if you get up to 57,000,
So
something like that,
58,000, yeah.
you can get 90% of that paid for.
But
If it's still.
It's only if there's
Right.
been enough damage around the state for the state to actually activate a program that puts that into effect. So right now, we don't have reason to believe we're going to exceed $58,000, but it's possible, depending on the full extent of what's going to have to be repaired. We know we're going to exceed $25,000. If we exceeded 58 and there was enough damage elsewhere in the state, then we would actually be eligible to receive a good bit of that money back. But as of right now, we expect to be fully responsible for the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else in the public have any questions? All right. Oh, yeah, Tad, please say your name and where you're from.
Tad Montgomery, Brattleboro. Peter, what was the word you used to describe Vermont as a state that...
Dillon's rural state. So I'm going to give a really quick explanation of that because it's a deep dive into
Vermont
municipal government education. We can talk about it offline anytime that you'd like, but just for the purposes of in the middle of this meeting, a Dillon's rural state, a municipal government can only do the things that the state allows the municipal government to do. A home rule state, a municipal government can do anything that the state government does not prohibit them from doing. 41 of the states in the United States are home rule states. There are 9 Dillon's rule states, and we're one of them.
The 41 states are much more in line with the constitutional structure than the 9 that aren't.
It's very interesting to look into.
Does anyone else in the public have any questions about the finance report? Right now we have, and I'm going to let you take it away, David, because
Okay.
you have want to have a conversation about moving some general fund money into the capital fund to spend on energy efficiency projects.
Well, I want to start out by thanking the Finance Committee for their report, which gave me this idea. The Finance Committee during the budget process commended us for, and this is about energy improvements. We had a series of town properties audited over the last few years and have sort of budget outlines for energy upgrades and improvements that would save the town a lot of money over time. And the Finance Committee commended us for choosing some of the ones with the biggest payback, the quickest payback, and funding them right off the bat. And they also recommended doing the others fairly soon because obviously, well, one reason obviously the costs are always more as you put things off. And if the oil prices increase, it's going to take a lot of the money that we might have to do some of these projects in the future. But I think the biggest reason for doing them sooner is that every month or a year that goes by that we don't do the improvements, we don't get those energy savings. So I wanted to offer a suggestion that we look at what we might have for a surplus this year and consider moving some of it over so that it doesn't just on July 1st go someplace where we can't do anything with it until town meeting or whatever the next responsibilities are. And move it over and spend it on some more of those energy improvements. I was very happy to see this month's report, and I know that these aren't final numbers, and it's way into August before we actually have the final numbers. But I was very pleased and surprised to see a 5.4% surplus at this point, that we're over 5% ahead of where we thought we would be, which very roughly, the really rough math is $750,000. And I'm not sure if we've had additional revenue. I'm looking forward to the report to see if we've had additional tax revenues, if the grant list has gone, all those things that we'd love to see. And also, I suspect that the ongoing efforts of the town staff to find more efficiencies probably has a lot to do with it as well. Every year, the budget, they seem to spend less on the things that they're actually in control of, like postage or phone bills, or things that they can actually cut back on. They seem to just keep getting smaller and smaller. But anyway, we're going to have a surplus. Hopefully it's $750,000, but I'd like us to consider moving some of that over and doing a few more of these energy projects.
Now, can I ask, you might be, this is what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
If maybe you can explain the different ways we approach a surplus. You know what I mean?
Sure.
How we've dealt with if we spend it in the past and when we do that.
Sure.
And, you know, how much you think there's gonna be, but also if there are other things that you're worried about.
Thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yeah, so I wanted to start with how much we think there's going to be, because I'm not sure where we have the disconnect on it, and we can talk that through further if we need to, but I'm not sure I'm not sure we need to dig down into that. But John and I don't foresee anything close to $750,000. So correct me if you feel like you need to say any of this differently, but based on the conversations he and I have been having over the last couple of months as we've been getting closer and closer to year end, you know, somewhere in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 is where we think we're going to land. It's possible that we might be up in the $200,000 range for a variety of reasons, especially yesterday, but even before yesterday, we think the number is actually probably likely to be lower than that, but likely to exceed $100,000. Is that
I think that's fair.
Fair spot.
I would expect that we'll end the year better than budget, somewhere in the $200,000 range. Why we're looking at a 5% under
Right
budget
now, yeah.
variance right now, you know, there's a lot of invoices. We'll continue to get invoices coming in all the way through August.
Right.
And so, you know, looking at the May report, we've done work in May, which we haven't paid for and won't be paid for until June. June won't be paid for until July. So there's still a lot more to come. And like Peter said, I don't expect that we'll be anywhere near $750,000. It's a very close call this year, and there's a lot of moving parts. And so it's, you know, to suggest that we have that much, I think would be a mistake. And I'm even a little uncomfortable even moving a small amount. You remember we already moved $75,000 to the solid waste fund. So, you know, it's certainly possible, but it's a risk that we'd be taking.
So to speak to the ways in which you can, you were exactly right when you said doing it before June 30th. If it's not done before June 30th, then it would need to wait until the next town meeting, and that's correct. The only other circumstance where we could spend from fund balance in the meantime would be an emergency. So there are provisions in the law that allow the select board to spend what you need to spend if we, you know, had a circumstance that demanded immediate attention, and then we would go to the next town meeting to ask that action be ratified. And that's normally the only time that we would draw on the fund balance in advance in the manner that you're proposing for tonight, would be to address an emergency situation. We recommended as staff to you the transfer of the $75,000 a couple of months ago, and you approved that based on the fact that we knew with bag sales being significantly lower than expected, like $100,000 lower than expected, that the net of the revenues and expenditures in the solid waste fund was going to be severely in deficit. And so we projected that $75,000 from the general fund would keep the solid waste fund solvent at this time, and that, you know, the heads up is that we're going to have to transfer more money from the general fund to the solid waste fund in future budgets, because we're going to lean heavier on the general fund transfer and not as heavily on bag revenue. That's in the overall scope of the solid waste program. That's a success. That means people are throwing away less garbage and putting more into the compost and the recycling, but it's negatively affecting the general fund finances. So we asked you to do that. That was an unusual thing to do in the middle of the year, but we asked you to do that because of the deficit situation in the solid waste fund. Other than for that, the advance transfer of funds from an expected surplus would usually only be made to address an emergency situation.
Okay.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I do.
Or comments?
Yeah, for me. I don't know if it's a question, comment? Yeah. Is there good, I see a benefit to, as we're going into budget season, to have this back in front of us again. so that we can budget for these. I want to make sure that we're seeing these come to us as part of a recommendation to continue with the improvements from the energy audit. Because I actually kind of like the idea of putting it back on to town meetings so that we have more town buy-in. I don't know how you feel about that, and if you think that upholds what you're looking to do.
What I was looking to do was not have to wait another year because it's not in the 18 budget that starts in a couple of weeks. I don't believe we've got any of these projects in there.
Oh, no, there are some.
We have a couple of smaller
Yeah, but there are some others that are not funded. So,
Right.
so the chart that we circulated shows the ones that have been, or the proportion that's been funded and the proportion that is not.
Right.
So certain facilities are, we're actually complete with
Yep.
implementing, or at least funding, the implementation of the recommendations. Others, we've just begun.
Right. And the water plants comes too.
Yeah.
But I hadn't thought about, March is sooner than July. So
Every year.
if it turns out that we,
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Amazing how that works.
And if it turns out, and again, when I saw and we've been looking at 2 and 3 and 4% going along, and last year we were kind of 1 or 2% over, and that's where we wound up, so I was sort of, hopefully looking. And I'm sorry I said that big number, because
You almost killed John.
if Chris puts it in the paper, we're gonna get poor John. So I take that back.
Because
But if, I think, let's look at putting them in the budget for 2019, and hope that the fuel costs don't go off the chart so that we can't afford them. And if if it turns out that we have a significant surplus, then we can ask town meeting if we can go ahead and spend some of that on, or maybe even have a special town meeting.
That's right.
To spend money on energy.
My follow-up newbie question is, so that budget that we talk about in March would then go into effect a year from now, right?
Correct.
So we would be moving on those in July.
That's correct.
Okay.
That makes sense. Does anyone else have any comments about that? No. I'm just gonna say,
Folks,
I'm gonna ask them,
thanks for coming.
yeah, one of the things I want to say is when it comes to the budget, I always get really nervous about it. So I like to err on the side of doing everything in the budget cycle. I'm sort of not a renegade with spending money is concerned, so, and I agree, I think you folks have been really good on putting things in.
We're about a third of the way
Yeah.
there, but we funded about a third of what was recommended. So we've still got a good body of work to do, but again, certain facilities have been fully addressed.
Yeah, and one of the things too that struck me when Tim mentioned during the committee reports is that the Traffic Safety Committee saw a video of people who can't get around on our sidewalks. So there are other demands on the budget besides energy efficiency, whether we want to put more money on sidewalks. And we cut those, I remember one year we were cutting sidewalks,
But the last couple of years we've added because of that,
But
probably
it's
added
so-
significantly this year.
Yeah, so I think that's why, to look at everything in a totality, that's the way I prefer to go, but
As well as
that's
our
just me.
responsibility to keep taxes down. when we
Right,
can.
there's
So
all that.
there's-
Yeah, because,
There's a lot to balance.
That's right. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on any of the things we were just talking about? Yeah, Franz, please tell us who you are and where you're from.
Franz Reichsman from the Finance Committee. Since our name was invoked, I'll just say that this is on our agenda for our meeting tomorrow night. So it's something we'll be looking at as we go into the budget cycle, and we'll be very interested in hearing from you folks what your thoughts are as well. So glad to hear about it tonight, too.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael.
I'm Michael Bosworth again. I think it is quite different, $750,000 versus, 100 to 200,000. But I almost feel like, Dave, you gave up a little too easily, but.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Thank you, Michael.
A lot of peer pressure up here.
But, I think with the energy savings measures, each one, when you do them, they start, you start saving from them. So they do have an effect on the budget. So I don't want to lose sight of that fact. I don't know whether it makes sense. Well, Select Board's not meeting again this fiscal year, right? Not till next fiscal year. So I had the idea of what if there was, $40,000, what could it be put toward for energy savings measures? A transfer like David was thinking about, some figure like that, would that make sense or not? Because I know there's different buildings serving different statuses as far as how much is already allocated. But if you're not meeting again this fiscal year, that's kind of hard to do.
Well, we'd have to take any action, we'd have to take it tonight. Is that correct?
And we're not done yet.
On this question.
Yes, on this question.
And I actually like that idea of a smaller, I think 100 to 200 makes me nervous just because we've seen what happened with the pool and, some of the other issues that we've had. But I'm not, while I would be opposed to moving a large chunk of that, I wouldn't be opposed to a more nominal amount of that, if that makes sense, to start kind of like putting savings towards.
Well,
John?
You know where I'm gonna go with this.
I don't, 'cause I'm new with you with the budget.
Finance committee is gonna go, God, here we go. But, a half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago, we had, Stanley lined here with a problem down on, Flat Street. It's been going on for years. I'd rather see that remedied, and things like, and Kate just mentioned sidewalks and, so I think we have so many infrastructure problems that we have to take care of that, I know it's great to look to the future and look for, savings with the environment, but we have real hands-on problems right now that I think just need more addressing at the point, but that's just my backwards thinking.
Well, let me see if I turn it around for you.
You can try.
I changed your mind once.
I did.
But I convinced you to not raise taxes.
That was tomato soup.
I've said this a bunch of times, but this is the only place where we can actually save money. And that whenever we put something off, that's money, a chance to save money that we don't have. It reduces our costs so that there is money for sidewalks and things. And that's all, that's the basis of pushing this. But the other is more the technical question, because John, you mentioned putting us at risk. And here's 5 years, you can keep asking these new questions. If we were to just move money from the general fund to the capital fund, like say $40,000 for instance, and then we needed it because another bank washed out, or we needed to put water barriers on Flat Street, we couldn't move it back. It could only be used for capital funds until the town meeting acted on it again?
No, you could move it back. But, we won't know that before the end of the year.
Right, but after July 1st, we can't do anything about it. If it turns out to be available.
Right, and after July 1st, if you moved it back, it would be the following fiscal year. If you waited until after July 1st to move it back.
So I see.
So you're saying that if we moved it tonight and then something broke, we wouldn't be able to use that money that we had moved for that thing that broke? Is that like a very simple way of saying it, or is that incorrect?
Well, once it's moved to the capital fund, it was moved there for a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a major incident that required additional capital, you could basically say, we're going to have to hold off on this project because we have another priority that we're going to have to use those funds for.
Because the problem is, we don't know what we have.
Well, yeah.
We don't know what we have, so
But if we could take a step like that, well, let's put 40,000 in there, and then if we need it, if the things come up, then we'll put it back where it belongs. It would keep us from going into our reserve if there were a need, and we could still get to it. And if it were there when the audits were all done and it was still available, then we could actually spend it on one of those projects or part of one of those projects. So I just know that by July 1st, when July 1st comes, that's it. And a year will go by before we can go make any progress on any more of these things. And for a long time, I didn't expect oil prices to go up for a while, but I'm starting to see indications that we may see that starting to happen, which is making me nervous about getting some of these things done. Because once it's back to $100 a gallon, we're not going to be able to afford to do that. these things, and then we're gonna be really stuck. So,
Well, once.
and we have to decide tonight too, because we don't meet again. So thanks, Mike, for the backbone.
Can I, just one second, Ted. Can I just, has everybody said something? Can I say something, or you want to go? Because I just want to say, this, my opinion on this has nothing to do with energy efficiency. It has to do with the basic principles of budgeting, and it really makes me nervous to start moving money around, you know, that we didn't budget for, you know? And I'd rather do it where we have a plan, we look at things in its totality and make some decisions. Because as we know, you know, we get to this point every year when we're doing the budget, and yes, we've been lucky to have sometimes more of a surplus than not, but we can never gauge what it's gonna be. And then when we have it, we've had to still make lots of big, hard decisions on how are we gonna spend that money. So for me, it's not about spending it on energy efficiency, spending it on sidewalks, spending it, you know, to put new carpeting in this room, even though it looks new. It's really about the basic principles of how we go down doing the town budget. So I can't support personally moving any money out of the surplus, or the, whatever we think there's gonna be a surplus, because I just don't think that that's prudent. And I stopped Tim from saying
No,
something.
you didn't. But I agree in that this is really tough for me personally, because it feels like two sort of fiscal things going on. Like, I really want to put real money into conserving energy, because that's fiscally responsible, and it's responsible for our earth, and it's something that we're all on board for. I hope, I feel we are. But it also is butting up against the general fiscal conservatism that I believe in saving our taxpayers' money when we can. And that's what budgets are for, is looking at the entirety of everything we need to spend our taxpayer dollars on. Not just the loudest, the squeakiest wheel. We put it some grease, $40,000 of grease right now. I think to be democratic, we have to look at the entire picture. So I'm agreeing with you, I think.
Yes, here we are.
Well, for me, it just seems like it's, and don't take this wrong, but it just feels like a scare tactic. You know, oh, if we don't do it now, we're never going to have this opportunity again. Well, you know, I've been hearing that for the last 5 or 6 years, that we're never going to have this opportunity again, and then all of a sudden more rebates come in, or the government extends something, and so that we have the ability to do it the next year. I don't know if we are or not, but it just seems like on June, what are we at, June 16th? What's our date? 20th. See, I'm off by a couple. I missed a whole couple days. It's kind of late in the game to be asking to transfer money, and so it just seems too late in the game right now to be messing with something that we don't know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, in general, I agree with everything that everybody has said. I think the budget process is the right way to do these things. I think the town meeting votes are the right way to do these things. That feels good to me. I will, however, say that I also do see benefit, be it symbolic, be it a first step of moving, you know, I would be okay with with moving some money as a either symbol or a first step. I want to say that in principle, I think the budget season, like you said, looking at things holistically, is the right way to do this. I also can see where you're coming from at wanting to finally take something concrete and put it towards something that we've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm open to hearing more discussion on that, and I'd be open to moving a nominal amount.
I think we don't ever transfer money. I think Peter comes with recommendations for money that needs to be transferred. We never transfer money. And I think that we did the budget process exactly the way we were supposed to. We created the budget, we passed it, we've gotten our quarterly or our monthly reports from John, and we've followed developments, we've been kept up to date. And now we're sitting with a potential surplus. We didn't budget a surplus. We budgeted what we thought we were going to spend, but we didn't spend it all. And it's there. So the question is, do we let it go over into, where does it go?
Fund balance.
Into the fund balance? Or do we want to take a little bit of it and see if we get lucky and can do some energy upgrades? And Tim, one of the things you said about conservation, and then but we also have to be careful about how we spend the tax money, but conservation saves tax money. And when we get the Energy Committee's presentation, I guess next month or whenever, some in the near future, you'll see some of the things that the streetlights, other places where it's really been a remarkable savings because of those investments. And but that's kind of that's off to the side. I mean, this will save tax money, taxpayers' money, but it's not off the charts to talk about what to do with surplus, because we didn't budget for a surplus. It's there, and the question is, it's an opportunity, and do we do what regularly happens, because nobody ever thinks about, well, should we do something different, and just let it go into the fund balance, or do we want to put a little aside? And I didn't prepare a number. I didn't come, prepared with a number to make a motion, because I was hoping that everybody would think it was a really good idea, and we just asked Peter to go back and Patrick to have a look at these things and do the best thing. But so now I'm kind of not sure exactly where to go.
Do you want to
I
think
would
about
like
it
to.
while
I would
Tad-
like to move something, but I have to think about it.
We'll let Tad talk, and then you can,
Great.
so you can be thinking. Is that good?
Yeah, thanks.
Please say your name and where you're from.
Tad Montgomery, Washington Street. Three things.
That's specific.
That's good.
The Energy Committee has talked with the Finance Committee and Patrick and I think Peter about approaching the energy improvements through some sort of a financing mechanism, whether it's a bond or a municipal lease. And a number of us think this is really the way that those should be addressed, as opposed to trying to work them in piece by piece into the budget here and there. Which leads to my second point, which is about low-hanging fruit. To date, as I understand it, the measures that have been implemented are the ones with the quickest payback, which makes sense from a purely fiscal standpoint from the short term, but can do long-term damage for the overall picture. And the reason for that is because if you pick the low-hanging fruit, things that have 2-year paybacks, 5-year paybacks, what you have left is things with 15, 20-year paybacks. And that becomes harder to justify from a strictly financial point of view. Whereas if you bundle them all together and the whole bundle has a 7 or a 10-year payback, it's much easier for everybody to swallow. My third point is that the Energy Committee is starting to have conversations about recommending to the Select Board that the town of Brattleboro sign on to the United States Climate Accord, which is the state by state, city by city equivalent of the Paris climate agreement. Just as a point of information that will quite possibly be brought before you and may have budgetary impacts. And lastly, just a point for a lot of our thinking that it's not just about the municipalities, it's about the whole town and how can we as a whole town reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public have any comments or questions? I'm not gonna, David, are you ready to say something?
I didn't do my homework, and I don't want to just toss a number out without having thought it through. So it's my fault. I should have told them
All right.
I'll just move on to the next item.
There is still the possibility, and I believe likelihood, that there would be a special town meeting sometime between now and next March, for what that's worth in terms of another opportunity to have a conversation between now and then.
And I do want to say I support your thinking a little bit
I know,
outside the
yeah.
boxes. I just, on this point, I'm not really in with that idea of doing something right here, right now, and not having thought it through.
I'm sorry.
I thought maybe Tim had an idea.
I know. Last second. All right, well, thank you, John, and thank you, David. Now we're going to move on to the FY18, speaking of this, heating oil. We're going to award a bid, and John O'Connor's going to get us up to, I know who's just going to sit in it. John O'Connor's going to fill us in.
Thank you, Kate. So included in the packet's memo, and mid-May, the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union and the town went out for bids for heating oil. It was 141,600 gallons, 63,900 gallons for the supervisory union and 77,700 for the town. And we received 6 bids, ranging from $1.789 per gallon, ranging up to $2.15 per gallon. The low bidder was Discount Oil out of Keene, New Hampshire, which provided our fuel oil this past season. And so I am recommending that we award the bid to Discount Oil at a prepaid price of $1.78.9 per gallon for the fiscal year 2018 heating season. And basically it will save us a little bit of money from what we budgeted. I think we used a budget number of $2 per gallon. So savings would be approximately $10,650 in the general fund and $2,350 in the enterprise funds. And I'd also like to recognize Frank Rucker, the Supervisory Union Business Administrator, who administered this process for us, which he's done in the past, and I think we've got a very favorable bid.
Does anyone on the board have any questions about the heating oil bid? Does anyone in the public have any questions about the heating oil bid?
It's freezing in here.
Yeah, we're cold.
That's the point I'm looking for.
We're freezing.
You're cold?
Yes.
I'm so cold.
We need some heating oil.
You guys should turn your thermostat so that this isn't like on all the time, and then you won't be so cold. And then you'll save money, and the taxpayers will have a reduction in their taxes, and it'll be all kind of wonderful. I'm Daniel Quip, again, still Washington Street, like my friend here. I'm going to ask that you indulge me, if you will, for like 2 minutes.
Of course.
Okay? And be very careful. So this is a tape measure. Mr. Elbow, would you mind? Thank you. Hold that very tight, please.
You seem to be a challenge.
Yeah. This is a...
Our meetings are so exciting.
I know, it's fun. This tape measure stops at 25 feet, so I need you to imagine that it goes all the way back here. And I'm going to just ask, thanks. All right. So, did I leave my bit of paper on your desk?
No.
Did I? Okay. Where did I put it? There it is. Okay, so here we go.
No, Peter.
I want to present you with this visual image in order for you to think about what we do when we burn oil. Okay, so I'm coming to this purely from an environmental climate change perspective. And you said earlier, John, that you mentioned about the environment and you want it to be more real, but there is nothing more real than our environment. We are all in our environment. None of us is outside of it. And when we burn oil, we emit carbon dioxide. 1 gallon of fuel oil, according to the EPA figures, will produce 22 pounds of carbon dioxide. You have just authorized a purchase, and you got a good deal, and I applaud you for that because I just paid a bit more when I bought mine, for 77,700 gallons for the town, right? And I totally spaced on the fact that we were also looking at the supervisory union, so we'll get to that in a second. 77,700 gallons of heating oil, when burned, will emit 1,709,400 pounds of carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide is a gas, and it's really hard to like imagine what that looks like. So this here, this 26 feet, represents the edge of a cube that would be 26 feet by 26 feet. If I could have built it and brought it in, I would, but the door's too small. And that cube is 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. The purchase of these 77,700 gallons will emit 775 of these cubes. If you were to put those cubes back to back, each one would kind of fit on like one side of the road from the curb to the middle. So you could imagine one on one side of the road, one on the other. We've started out here. We would go all the way down Main Street, down to the co-op, then we'd turn up Canal Street, keep going. We'd go past the hospital, we'd go past grocery stores, we'd go past exit 1, and we'd get basically almost to Guildford with these 26 feet by 26 feet by 26 feet cubes. That's how much carbon dioxide will be emitted from the purchase of this heating oil. And I'm not here today to say don't purchase this heating oil, because right now with fiscal year 18 upon us, we don't have another plan for heating our town buildings other than heating oil. But I do know that the Energy Committee have come to you before with other plans for heating those buildings, and I do know that I've spoken before specifically about the boiler in the library. We talked before about the police fire, and there are other ways to heat buildings. So I would implore you to think not only about your fiscal responsibility, but to think about the responsibility you have towards future generations. The carbon that you emit from this purchase will hang around for hundreds of years. That's just a fact. And, you know, it's kind of an intense fact, and it's kind of hard to comprehend, but I hoped tonight that you might comprehend the actual effects of these kind of purchases. And I hope that as we move forward, we can invest in a cleaner way to heat our buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one thing?
Yeah, sure.
You purchased heating oil? I just want to make sure that I heard that.
I did, John. And you know, I think one of the most interesting things about being like a climate activist and also a person alive at this moment in history is that we don't get to like be the sort of perfect shining example. Like, I don't own my home. I rent. My landlord doesn't provide me with options other than heating my drafty, poorly insulated home with heating oil. I would much sooner have subsidies from the state to allow me to weatherize, because I'm not eligible for those. I'd like to be able to buy some heat pumps. You know, I'd like to be able to get off oil. Like every time I call our oil company, I feel bad. You know, like, because I know that those actions have consequences. And, you know, that's kind of what it is to be alive right now, to know that what we do is a disaster, but to be in a system that doesn't give us too many other options. So I'm asking you guys to think about the system. You know, I'm not here to like say, you guys did a bad thing, right? Our town buildings are heated by oil. That's just kind of a fact right now, but we can move past it, and we should.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Would anyone on the board like to make a motion?
Oh.
John will.
To award a contract to Discount Oil of Keene, New Hampshire for 77,700 gallons of number 2 heating fuel oil at a prepaid price of $1.78.9 per gallon.
We have a motion to award a contract to Discount Oil of Keene, New Hampshire to purchase heating fuel oil. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Now we're going to talk about the parking lot improvements. And if everyone can remember, we approved improving the parking lots, Harmony Lot, Harris Lot, Gibson Aiken Center. And Patrick is going to tell us about a bid he wants us to award.
Excellent. Good evening. Tonight, staff is recommending the Select Board award a contract to Zaluzny Excavating Corporation of Vernon, Vermont in the amount of $293,850, which includes the base bid and one of the alternates, which would be a pedestrian safety improvement in the Harmony parking lot. Now, the board may recall that originally the scope of this work included a total of 4 parking lots, 3 of which are assets in the parking fund, that being the Preston lot, the Harmony lot, and the Harris Place parking lot, and one of the assets belonging to the general fund, that being the parking lot immediately behind the Gibson-Aiken Center. Pretty quickly on, as staff were working with the project engineers, we recognized that the Preston lot was qualitatively more simple than the other 3 lots in terms of the complexity of the project. We believed that the Preston lot might be most attractive merely to a paving contractor, whereas the other 3 lots would generally require a general contractor, given the number and different types of trades that would be involved in each of those lots. And so we separated out the Preston lot as a project we would bid separately. Final designs and a final scope of work were completed by the project engineers in May. And the first project to go out to bid was the one which included the Harmony lot, the Harris lot, and the Gibson-Aiken Center. This was competitively bid, and 2 bids were opened publicly on June 7th. And a summary of those bids is presented in the report that's in the packet that you received last Friday. We received a total of 2 bids, one from Zaluzny and one from LaRock. They were within $50 of each other, which is a really tight little group for a group of work such as this. There is a total of $302,000 set aside for all 4 projects. And one of the things I think you may notice then is that the bids came in a little higher than we anticipated. Now that we have pricing, which is the product of a competitive bid, it's pretty clear that we don't have the money to conduct all 4 projects. And so staff is recommending that we award the bid to Zaluzny and reduce the scope to exclude, with regret, the Preston parking lot and to leave it in its current condition at this time.
Does anyone on the board have any questions? John?
Well, the question I have is, Patrick, why is it so much higher than what we were told it would cost? I mean, it's...
I wish I had a really good answer for you, John.
Yeah.
Instead, I have, sometimes they hit the mark right on. Occasionally, it's better than the mark. In this case, the bids came in considerably higher. What I would point out, though, is we had 2 bids from 2 very qualified local firms, and they were within $50 of each other. So while I think it's a reasonable question to wonder why the engineers led us to believe it was going to be one price, that there isn't wild disparity in the bidding probably indicates that this is a realistic price for this body of work.
So is it worth rebidding it or not? Or
I would suggest it probably isn't worth rebidding it if we want to do the work this year. Because it's important that we get outside construction work like this done before the snow flies, before the asphalt hot mix plants close down. And so any delay from this point would really make a project occurring this year probably unlikely or more expensive if we were to shorten the time frame to get the project work done.
In addition to that, Patrick's point was well taken about how the 2 bids were just right on each other. So this is the fair price for this work this year. If we're going to get it done this year, we should expect to pay this price or in the neighborhood of this price. So we would recommend that you award to Zaluzny so that the work can get done. The improvements are needed.
No, I know that they're needed.
Now, when would the Preston lot be up for fixing? We just don't know.
Yeah, at this time, we don't exactly know. Staff would be on the lookout throughout the course of the year for any opportunity where we might be able to do even a marginal, very thin little coat of new asphalt or some just enhanced patching. In terms of when would we be able to come back and do a full-blown project such as we had predicted, it's probably going to be in the fiscal 19 time frame. As you'll know, the board approved a package of different improvements in the parking fund for fiscal 18, which included energy saving measures along with some repairs to the transportation center. So it might be a little while before the Preston lot receives a real thorough repair project.
Yes, John.
So the Preston lot is the one across from
The co-op.
The transportation center.
Transportation Center. So maybe we can do some thought about this and maybe help Stanley down at that end. And I'm just thinking ahead. I mean, it's close enough.
Was that underwater?
No, but it's right down the street from it, but,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
was just curious.
we may be able to do some kind of, you
Run
know.
the water into the parking lot.
If some, just run it into the parking lot, yeah. Or I'm just thinking that we could do some thinking about that.
Do you know how much it is to do the Preston lot, or do we have
We had an original estimate of just under 50,000, I believe,
Right.
but our estimates have shown themselves to have weaknesses.
I'm just wondering what Stevens was missing, or, because it's not a little bit. I mean, it's off by a lot.
Yeah, it's
And
tough
so I'm
to
just
say, you
wondering
know?
If we missed something, or,
I wouldn't want to put words in their mouth,
Yeah, I
but
know.
I think there's
I
a
don't either.
certain
I don't either,
degree
but
of, you know, if the contractors are hungry, the prices are lower. And if they're feeling pretty good about things, they're not so low.
yeah.
And so those factors may be both beyond our control and even beyond our reach of being able to fully assess.
And I'm surprised we only had 2 bids. I'm shocked at that,
Yeah.
because there's enough companies around that do this type of work.
Right.
So,
Just 2 really quick questions. The extras, the alts, they're not included, or they are?
They are not included except for one, which we're recommending the pedestrian safety improvement at the Harmony parking lot.
Number 2.
Number 2. Oh, number 2.
Got it. So, and the other question is, and please don't take it as an insult to intelligence or anything, but they're pretty much a wash, the 2 bids, with a difference of $50. So what was the process of picking, you have more experience with Zaluzny?
Saluzny was lower by $50. You know, the town has done loads of work with both companies. And, you know, has a really long history with each one. There's no preference here whatsoever. They're both good firms. They're both good local firms.
$50 is $50, buddy.
It actually, in all seriousness, that's where it landed
probably does.
because we've had success with both, and you know have expectation that either one would succeed with this work.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go for the higher bid, so you go for the lower bid, even though the lower bid is only $50 lower.
now, isn't it more than $50? Because Zaluzny will do the pedestrian safety for $4,000, LaRock will do it for $5,500.
Yes.
So it's actually
It's more.
$2,000.
Sure. Yeah,
Is it, or no?
it's
What?
1,550 when you add in the
1550, yeah.
alternate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Which is still
Really close.
one third of 1% difference.
Yeah.
But there's just no basis on which to choose the higher bid over the lower bid.
Does anyone in the public, Dale?
So if you only have a couple bidders like that in their local, they have a monopoly on the town, so they can raise their prices. How long was that bid put out for? How many days? And then, did you advertise it so that other towns can see it?
Yeah, it was, I could speak to that if you like. It was advertised in the Reformer. I know it was picked up by a number of the construction trade magazines. I believe it was open for either 3 or 4 weeks. And it was also distributed by the project engineers to a lengthy list of firms.
What time of year?
This was just conducted in May.
Yeah, that's why, because this is their busy season and everybody's trying to do up. If it had been done in the winter, you would have had all kinds of bidders. I think it might wait another year, let the frost tear it up some more and then do it again. Except bid in the winter, and you'll get a better price. The oil prices are going down, we know that.
Actually, the oil prices are going up.
Really, I just
Yeah, we got a great price, but we got an even greater price last year.
The barrels
Yeah.
have gone down.
Are you talking about out in the commodities market?
Yeah, out in the market.
Well, prices for construction work very rarely go down from year to year, you know, so.
I know, but it's the way it was bidded. It was bidded right at high time of the year.
Well,
And
again,
They
you-
already got their projects already lined up, instead of at a low time of year where you could get a better bid.
I think that, I think
You
the
never
question-
know how many people are gonna.
I think the question is, does anyone want to make a motion? And then we can decide if
Sure.
we're going to do this or not.
I move to award a contract to Zaluzny Excavating Corporation of Vernon, Vermont in the amount of $293,850, which includes the base bid for paving at the Harmony parking lot, the Harris Place parking lot, and the Gibson-Aiken Center parking lot, and alternate 2 for pedestrian safety improvements in the Harmony parking lot.
All right, we have a motion toward a contract to Zaluzny Excavating for paving in the Harmony lot, Harris lot, and Gibson-Aiken Center parking lot. Before we vote, does anyone on the board have any more comments or questions?
No, I think we should
All
move
right.
along.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? All right, motion carries 5-0.
I'm sad about the trees.
I know, like
Just want to
trees
go on
too.
record.
Now we have Carol Lolat is going to be coming up and talking to us about a bid for the dog park fence.
Hey, good evening.
Hi, Carol.
Carol, this is late for you.
It's early.
Trying to make you feel good.
So we had a bid opening on Wednesday, May 24th, for the dog park fencing. We received 4 bids ranging from $10,500 to $18,450. We had a mandatory walkthrough, so all the vendors were on site, check out the area to see what they would be working with. We're looking to install 690 linear feet of black vinyl chain link fence, which will be 5 feet high, and we're hoping to put that in this summer. And like I said, this project is a project that's all fundraised money. So the committee has raised over $19,000 for the project, and this falls well within what has been fundraised. It will leave money left over for signage and park benches and temporary water lines. So I'm recommending to you this evening that we award the bid to the low bidder of Cheshire Fence of Marlborough, New Hampshire.
Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions about the dog fence?
Yeah, I'm glad we're moving forward. I'm kind of bummed that we can't do it with the company from Brattleboro, but the price point speaks for itself, so that's what we've got.
Anybody else?
I want the skate park.
That's coming next. Does anyone in the public have any questions about the dog park fence? Would anybody on the board like to make a motion about the dog park fence?
I move, wrong page.
Just did.
I move we award a bid for fencing for the dog park to Cheshire Fence of Marlborough, New Hampshire in the amount of $10,500.
We have a motion to award a bid for fencing for the dog park to Cheshire Fence of Marlborough, New Hampshire in the amount of $10,500. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Carol.
Great, thank you very much.
Very much.
Thanks, yeah. It was busy today, it was a nice day.
I saw the post, I went, whoa.
Next up, we have Chief Bacassi is going to come up and talk to us about the purchase of an extrication tool.
Oh, they're both coming up.
Yes.
We're in trouble.
We have Assistant Chief Howard, too.
Good evening. We're here tonight to ask for approval to purchase a battery-operated extrication tool. Back in February, we applied for a special operations grant through Homeland Security to fund this tool. At the time when I applied for the tool, I felt really good about what I thought the outcome would be, but recently we were notified that the grant was denied due to the fact that it didn't fit into their scope of funding. The federal government and the state, as you know, are really squeezing down on their scope. We're presently providing the service, the extrication, with a tool that's 24 years old. It's a hydraulic tool. Since we applied for the grant, we have actually field tested the two most popular, if you will, tools now that are on the market. These battery-operated tools are relatively new to the fire service. And we field tested both an Amcus tool and the other brand is a Hearst. We got quotes on both. The Hearst tool quote came in at $33,580, and they're giving us $2,000 on a trade-in for our hydraulic tool. So that final purchase price was $31,580. The other one we tested, the Amcus, we were quoted at $28,800 for that tool. Though you can see they're both fairly close in price, we're opting to go with we're asking for the higher price tool because within that we're getting more options. It's better built, it weighs less, it's more user friendly, and the cutting and the spreading movements in both of the cutter and the spreader, as well as the ram, are much quicker than the Amcus tool. If you rewind here a little bit, we ordered a truck not long ago, and our hope and our intention back then was to include this tool in the purchase price of the truck. It didn't work out that way. The truck came in a little bit higher than we had expected, plus with what I thought we were going to get for the grant, the whole thing just didn't work out. So what we're proposing here is a little bit of creative funding, but we think that it's an efficient way to use what's already budgeted money. So we're proposing to use the remaining $14,504 from the approved funding for the new truck that is now on order. From that truck, we're going to remove the optional headset system at a savings of $6,500. We're going to change the emergency lighting package, which will save $3,000. We have $14,000 budgeted for a thermal imaging camera in the 18 capital budget. We have received the price of $9,200 for that camera, and we would like to use the savings of $4,800 toward that. And the town manager has graciously offered up $2,776 from savings from our capital expenditures this year to fund the rest. So what we're asking for is to spend the $31,580 and fund it in that manner to buy a new battery operated extrication tool. The other piece that we just like to add here in closing is that this tool is in the capital budget for FY19. So if we're allowed to buy it now, that $35,000 can be removed or used at other places at the discretion of the town manager.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? Or the chief and the assistant chief?
I'll say it looks like some creative, finding some money in good areas, and I think we all appreciate that. So, nice work.
I just want to point out in your favor that our current unit is a gas-powered unit, and by replacing it with these battery-powered, we're going to be taking a little less.
He's not buying it.
Start.
I can see the bubble growing.
When you come with the electric fire truck, then you'll be impressed.
Yes.
And the old one can go on eBay, or what do we?
They're giving us the trade-in for it.
That's right. I'm not paying attention.
Does anyone?
Thank you.
Everyone else set?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. Is the headset and the light, are you gonna come back for that? The headset seems kind of, smart to me.
Right, so
I just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the work you did, and you did great.
we presently don't have headsets
Right.
in any of the vehicles that we own. And we really wanted it in this truck, but we felt as though the priority was the tool.
I mean, I can
And so
see
we were
why.
willing to give up the headset in that to get that money.
Have you heard Mike yell?
I haven't. He's always been very soft-spoken around me.
You can hear him. You can hear him. I think one of the newbies need to read one of these.
I want to ask the public first. John.
Oh,
If-
okay.
Is anyone in the public
Well,
have
we
any
could always
questions or
go back to
comments?
it.
Yes, Ron.
Franz Reichsman from the Finance Committee. I'm curious, now, the financing piece seems to have been worked out here. I'm curious about the need for the new tool compared to the old one. At age 67, I'm not ready to say that everything that's 24 years old needs to be replaced. So just, how's the first one working, and why do we need this new implement at this time?
Sure, so the present one works. The power pack, or the power unit, if you will, it's a gas-driven power unit that pushes hydraulic fluid through the tools. All of the motions, the spreading, the cutting, are all really slowing down. The cutter tool is, the jaws of the cutter tool are chipped, and they're expensive. And to put, I have a hard time putting a ton of money into something that is that old. And I think our hope was that as we built this new combination rescue pumper, we built it around, we really did it different this time around than we've done it in the past. We built the truck around the tools that we needed to carry this time, because we are combining two trucks. And it was gonna be a lot more money to put the hose reels, the hydraulic hose reels, and everything into that truck going forward. So the way we looked at it, it was a cost-cutting measure for the truck, at the same time trying to improve our capabilities with a battery-operated tool.
Just like that good question. The way cars are made today, the steel in them is much harder, and technology in these tools have come along in 24 years, have changed tremendously to allow us to cut these steel that's in these cars. So these new tools that we get are going to be even that much better. Unfortunately, when car builders build cars, they don't think of us firefighters when we have to go there and cut the cars apart. But the industry is trying to keep up on that, and I think we're making a huge step in the right direction by doing this. So.
Great. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a Hearst battery-operated extrication tool for the fire department in the net amount of $31,580.
We have a motion to approve the purchase of a Hearst battery-operated extrication tool for the fire department in the net amount of $31,580. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? No. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Really good.
Now we have, I believe it's going to be Rod Francis, is going to come up and talk to us about a Promise Community Grant. Rod, already.
So you have before you a memo outlining the history of the Promise Grant concept, the application by the state of Vermont to the federal government for a large grant supporting the implementation of Promise community projects across the state. Brattleboro was one of 7 communities in the first so-called first cohort of Promise community projects, and the evolution of the program is now at the point where each of the successful communities in that first cohort have applied for grants to support implementation projects. The implementation project for Brattleboro is the development of a trail network focused on the Green Street community neighborhood. The boundaries of the Green Street Promise community are roughly Canal Street up to Burge, along Burge to the sort of gazebo at Cherry and Esty, then down through Williams and up onto Western Avenue, and then down High Street, so roughly from the Avenue Grocery back down to town. And so this is a community that statistically and demographically has a number of significant challenges which are outlined in the memo. And the idea here is to improve the walkability of the neighborhood and further reinforce the central position of the school and the schoolyard in the community. So the grant would fund the community development of a trail network and improvements to the Elliott Street Park. We are currently still investigating the best route for the trails. There are some topographical challenges and some estimating challenges associated with that, and then attempting to get the best access to the Elliott Street Park across Elliott Street. So I've been working with the Green Street Promise Community organization for about 2 years, and in this process we established that it would be perhaps the most effective structure to have the town act as fiscal agent and receive the $200,000 of the grant, and then Kids Place would be the day-to-day manager of the activities associated with the grant. And we would set up reporting mechanisms between Kids Place and the town to ensure that we'd perform according to the requirements of the grant. There are both financial requirements which we're familiar with and comfortable with, and there are some performance-based criteria that we are yet to negotiate. And the process is that if the grant is accepted, as we hope that it will be, then we would enter into a process with a consulting firm to establish results-based accounting criteria for measuring the performance of the grant in non-financial ways. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
There's no, the state's not requiring any matching funds or anything for the town?
Nope.
Is anyone on, Peter?
Just one thing I think we should note for the record. The state has requested that the federal government grant an extension to the deadline for the use of these funds, and we don't know whether or not the federal government will grant that extension to the state. So it may be difficult to expend all the funds and accomplish all the work that's set out in the grant if that extension is not granted. But if that happens, it won't just be Brattleboro and our project that are affected by that. It'll be the other projects around the state. Mm-hmm. We all are hopeful that the state will succeed in getting the extension, in which case then we would be able to complete all the work.
Now, if you don't get the extension, is there like a plan, like we'll do this, and you know what I mean? Is there some like plan to make it?
Yes, yeah, Emily, this is Emily Kornheiser. She's with the Promise Grant, a Promise Community Program with the state, and she can answer that question.
Hi, I'm Emily Kornheiser, and while I do live here and I am supporting this Promise Community, I work on Promise Communities statewide, and have, I'm planning on attending a select board meeting in Eden, Vermont in a few weeks. So it's just having that sort of statewide context, even though you're familiar with something media today. Our federal technical team, with the full Early Learning Challenge grant, has basically promised that we'll get this no-cost extension. We'll know in the next month. They have no interest in getting any money back from us for political reasons, just as much as a deep professional interest in seeing Vermont succeed. And they've given us sort of a 99% chance of it all going through, and everyone on the state level team is operating as if we have that extra year. None of us are looking for new jobs. All of our budgets go out the extra year as well, and it's been pretty guaranteed for a number of years now. It's just really a paperwork
Okay.
issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions? John does.
Is there a lot of time commitment on your end, Rod, on this, or?
No, any more than normal. I mean, yes, but that's okay. Yeah, just like the River to the River project or other stuff, it's just it's the same.
Yep,
it's fine.
Seems like a great project.
That is fantastic.
No, it does.
Fantastic. Does anyone in the public have any questions? Dale?
Yeah, Dale Troy, Brattleboro. Who manages those funds?
I can answer that. So the way this particular program is structured, Dale, is that if the town votes tonight to accept and receive the grant, then $200,000 would be transferred from the state to the town of Brattleboro. And then according to the grant agreement, including hiring a project coordinator, the Kids Place would ensure that the funds that are spent against that $200,000, and that would be reconciled with the grant manager, Tim. And we would be making frequent, I think quarterly reports to the state to show that the funds have been spent according to the budget. And then there's a parallel reporting process to make sure that the project is meeting its non-fiscal goals.
Okay, I'm not understanding that. So I just want to know who actually hands out those funds.
Kids Place.
Kids Place
The town receives the funds, and then the town will authorize the release of the funds to Kids Place.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Wait, let me find my papers.
We have two, actually, we have two motions.
You actually have to have two motions, thank you.
One is to accept the grant, and then the other one is to sub-grant it to Kids Place.
Okay. Am I supposed to make them both?
Go ahead.
I'm all over it.
Yeah, make it up.
I can't do that now that I've seen the paper. To accept, I'll make a motion to accept and appropriate an Agency of Human Services Promise Communities grant in the amount of $200,000.
Do we have to do them separate if we do one
You
motion?
can do them as one. You can say
And to approve a sub-grant agreement between the town and Kids Place Incorporated.
Great. We have a motion to approve a grant for $200,000 and sub-grant it to Kids Place. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you,
Awesome.
everybody.
Awesome stuff.
Now you have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Nobody
Look at Rod, can't get out of here fast enough.
Yeah.
I'd like to say on behalf of Kids Place and our community of children and families, thank you so much for being supportive of this project and working to build the partnerships. This grant is a beautiful process of building partnerships among existing organizations and in collaboration with community and all of us living and working here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is the discussion about plastic bags. As everyone will remember, there was a ballot initiative or a, whatever, it's 8:30 at night. Yeah, referendum, non-binding, to ban single-use plastic bags. Out of that, we, at a subsequent select board meeting after town meeting day, we asked the town manager to come back to us with some ideas, because this is going to take an ordinance. If we're going to change it, we just can't do a magic wand. So they are back tonight. I think Patrick is going to speak to it to tell us sort of what you've learned and what your recommendations might be.
Sure. Thank you. What I would say, at least to start the discussion, is tonight is a little different than many of the issues that come before you, in that there is no specific recommendation coming from staff. Instead, staff is seeking guidance from the select board on what is really a policy decision about a future ordinance relating to plastic bags in Brattleboro. Now, Bob Fisher and I have since early April, at the direction of the board, been investigating plastic bag ordinances across the United States. We've reviewed many different ordinances in municipalities, small and large, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and everywhere in between. We've read a number of studies that have talked about the effectiveness of certain models of ordinance, and have thoroughly gone through at least one law journal article, which was particularly helpful in terms of helping us to avoid certain pitfalls in ordinance construction on this particular issue. And over the course of this body of research, what we found is that there are generally 3 different types of bag ordinances. All right. On the one hand, there is what we might call a fee-only approach. On the other hand, there would be just an out-and-out ban. And then the third approach, which is becoming far more common these days, is what you might think of as a hybrid approach, which tries to take the good parts of each of the other two and avoid some of the pitfalls that each of the other two has. So I'll try and walk you through those a little bit, and hopefully we can generate a discussion that sort of leads us down one road, or we'll see where it goes. So the fee-only approach began, as I understand it, first in the nation of Ireland in 2002, where they imposed a 15-cent fee on consumers each time that consumers required a single-use bag at a retail checkout. This was seen as highly successful and is estimated to have reduced the use of plastic bags by 90%. Ireland's approach, as you will note, was not a ban. Rather, it was an attempt to influence people's behavior and to promote the use of reusable bags by making single-use bags more costly in comparison. There could be some downside to this in that some may see it as a half step. It is not a complete ban of plastic bags, which are known to have negative impacts on the environment. Just a out-and-out fee would still allow for the use of plastic bags, and some may see this as a negative. On the positive side, however, this type of an approach avoids a claim of government overreach, as all available options which exist today would exist if a fee was established in Brattleboro by virtue of an ordinance that includes plastic bags. So the decision would be left to the consumer either to change their behavior and begin to use reusable bags in an effort to avoid additional cost. And so, you know, this entire approach, this fee-only approach, is founded on the idea that over time, consumers will begin to adopt reusable bags in an attempt to avoid additional fees. So the second type of bag ordinance is a pure ban. I believe this began in San Francisco, which was attempting to enact an ordinance very much similar to the one in Ireland. However, before that ordinance went into effect, opposition groups had persuaded the California legislature to preempt any local fees that would be applied to the use of plastic bags, instead favoring the promotion of plastic bag recycling. In response, San Francisco countered by establishing the first pure ban on single-use plastic bags. Complete prohibitions of this type typically tend to define these single-use plastic bags by virtue of their mil thickness of the bag, usually about a 2¼ to 2.5 mil thickness. Just as a point of comparison, Brattleboro's pay-as-you-throw trash bags are 3 mils thick. So we're really talking about these somewhat flimsy bags that you receive at Price Chopper, Hannaford's, or a place like that. Some towns which have adopted a pure ban have actually had some unintended consequences that they weren't very happy with, particularly Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas had a pure ban, and in response, some of the local larger retail chains merely increase the mil thickness of the plastic bags that they distribute at checkout. And so studies revealed that one of the consequences of a pure ban may be that the volume of plastic released into the environment may actually increase rather than decrease. Additional opposition to an out-and-out ban may come from folks that are supporters of, other environmental causes that wouldn't like to see the drop in plastic immediately result in additional paper bag consumption and the additional trees that would need to be harvested in order to provide those paper bags. However, an out-and-out ban addresses the issue head-on and is certainly one of the available options that the board could consider. As noted in the memo, there are potential risks of litigation, and those are serious, but Attorney Fisher was still confident enough that it's a reasonable choice for the board to consider. Lastly, I would describe the hybrid approach, also known as the second generation plastic bag ban. This type of ordinance is becoming more popular. In this model, the single-use bags, as we've come to understand them as being a thin plastic bag issued at the checkout counter, would be altogether banned. However, we don't stop there. We require then that any acceptable alternative single-use bag, whether it be a paper bag or a recycled paper bag or a compostable bag, can be issued but must be issued for a fee, and that fee needs to be separately identified on the receipt that the consumer sees. So they're consistently reminded that you didn't bring a reusable bag to the store, and so we're going to provide you some acceptable options, either paper, recycled paper, or compostable, but you're going to be charged for those, and that charge is going to be separately identified. In most of the towns that have adopted this successfully, they have also ensured that the retailer is able to keep that fee, and so that helps to successfully avoid strong pushback from the retail environment. So those are the three general types. We've got the pure ban, the fee only, or the fee and the ban combined. And Attorney Fisher is prepared to draft an ordinance along any of those lines that the board was interested in seeing. There would still be a variety of issues to consider in the specific construction of any ordinance that falls, regardless of which choice you choose. But it would be helpful for staff to begin to get some guidance as to which direction might be the best fit for the town.
Can I ask one question before we get into the substance of this? Can you explain what the process is to getting from a draft to an actual ordinance? Like, are there hearings along the way? Do you know what I mean? I just want everyone to
Sure.
understand what the process is gonna be.
So I can speak to that. The town passes ordinances routinely. I think in this instance, we would likely go above and beyond. And I think the process of having this discussion now is kind of part of that process. Technically speaking, however, to pass an ordinance requires the town to conduct a first reading. That would occur at a select board meeting where the board would read through the ordinance as it was proposed. It would then require a second reading at a subsequent select board meeting, where once again, the ordinance would be read. Then the board would open a public hearing. They would take any testimony from the public on that particular issue. They would close the public hearing. The board would then decide whether or not to take action on that measure. If the board took action on that measure, I believe the new ordinance, and this is where Jan can help me, the new ordinance would be referenced in the paper or published in the paper and then would go into effect, 60 days after the board took action.
Right, so there is a process to this, and there is a process that allows for public participation. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would think as the board continues to discuss this, there'll be additional opportunities before we get to a specific document where, elements of that growing and developing and evolving ordinance could be discussed and debated.
Right. Because at this particular moment, this is the first time anybody in the town has gotten even a sense of what the potential options are.
But they've known about the
right.
process that we are going to go through. They've known about that we are considering
That's
banning
right.
or doing
That's right.
something with.
I just don't want people
with the single-use bags.
watching TV to freak
Right.
out and saying they can't go to the grocery store tomorrow and get a bag,
No.
because there's a process that we're gonna encounter or go through. Does anyone want to start a conversation on what they think of these?
I have a question for Patrick.
Yes.
When you were looking at states, do you happen to know off the top of your head if you looked at other Dillon's Rules states? And one of those would be, I'm pretty sure, Illinois, if that helps, because I know they did something. Okay, great.
Absolutely. And there were some.
That's great. And it seemed to be fine. Ish.
Again, it depends in part on which model is chosen and the other specifics of each state's set of statutes.
Right.
California is kind of unique, and New York as well. Those are two states that are prone to, it would seem to me, to be prone to more litigation on these types of matters than in other states. So there is the sort of Dillon's rule versus home rule issue, but there are also other things that can make it more complicated. I think, after the conversations with Attorney Fisher, he's confident that the board has the authority to enact such an ordinance by virtue of the authority to regulate solid waste. Still, though, there carries some risk with how the ordinance is constructed, and it could be challenged based on it being too narrowly focused or being capricious or other types of legal challenges that can apply to any ordinance, even if the board is empowered to make such an ordinance.
Thank you so much for having that answer.
I'm just surprised that, because this was public notice, that, some of the larger users aren't here tonight.
Well, can I just be honest? I mean, I don't want to take this the wrong way, but if you're not looking for, how many people actually look at the select board? These people do, but actually look at the select board meeting agendas. Do you know what I mean?
No.
I think that's why the public hearing, that's why I was sort of saying the public hearing process, I hope will bring these people out.
Well, I'm not talking about the public at large.
No, I'm talking about retailers
the
too.
retailers.
But, unless we go and ask, to me, I don't think the manager up at Hannaford's big concern on a Tuesday night is what we might be talking. I think we need to do outreach.
They also don't know what they're facing.
Well, that's it.
So, because we haven't had our initial discussion.
Right.
Right, but you would, I'm just saying that I can't believe that this is going to be a.
I think when we get the discussion going.
Right. Well, I was just hoping that somebody would have been here to at least give another side of it, it would help me process. Because I don't know, it's hard to do an all-out ban, because the other night I couldn't sleep, so I'm on the computer, 3 o'clock in the morning, reading about single-use bags in Ireland and how it worked and how it didn't work, and then San Francisco and all these other places, and then there were some articles in it, probably written by the plastic industry, that were saying, it's not that big of a problem, so there's a lot out there, and I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer for this. I mean, this is...
Tim knows.
I think there was outreach done.
Can I speak?
Yes, please. If you know of any outreach done to any of the retailers, that would help. I don't know if you know of anybody.
Well, I'm surprised that you're saying this because there has been outreach when we had the petition. The Reformer certainly publicized it very well, and the people had a chance to vote on the petition, and they voted overwhelmingly.
No, I'm not talking about the public. I'm talking about, like, have we talked to that manager at Hannaford's to say, how many plastic bags do you guys use during a day? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and before we wrote the initiative, we had discussions with the people at Sam's and people at Hannaford's and Price Chopper.
Okay.
And to our surprise, they were pretty cool with the whole process. The person that, the manager at Price Chopper said that he had been a manager at a Price Chopper in Great Barrington when they went through the same process. And it was a ban, not a fee, not a hybrid. And it was a really smooth transition. So he was very comfortable with the whole process. So I think that the business community is very well aware of this. It's been publicized in the Reformer enough. So I think they're expecting the ban to happen because of the petition that over 1,000 people voted for.
See, it would have been nice if somebody from Price came in and said that.
Right.
I mean, it would help me,
Well,
and
I can't
along
speak-
with the process, it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I can't speak for the manager of
Right.
Price Chopper, but I'm telling you what he told me.
Yep.
First of all, I want to applaud the Select Board for getting this far. Back in December, when we were collecting signatures on the petition, there's a former Select Board member who came up to me and said, well, I'll sign it, but it's not going to happen. We tried this 4 years ago, and the business community and the board is just not going to let it happen. So this is evidence that positive change does happen. The issue itself is kind of a no-brainer. Plastic bags are a bad idea. I applaud Patrick for the extensive homework that you and Bob Fisher have done on it. And in all truth, we seriously considered fees versus a ban in drafting the petition that the people voted for. But we didn't really look that carefully, I think, into the hybrid model that you proposed. But the petition was pretty specific. The people of Brattleboro voted for a ban, and our neighbors to the south, many communities in Massachusetts, from Great Barrington to Cape Cod, have instituted a ban, and it's worked pretty well. There hasn't been any negative repercussions that I've heard. So, do you have any questions?
I had a sense that you, I knew that you had talked to retailers and things. So
Of course.
Clarify that.
Yeah, of course, we wouldn't do it without talking to them. A lot of retailers, up and down Main Street, West Bratt, all around.
I have a quick question for you that you might be able to help me with, Tim. Did they mention what's basically single-use paper bags? I mean, was that used as a substitute in some of their minds for the single-use plastic bags?
Yeah, paper bags does come up, and that could be an option, but we think that people would just, like other communities, migrate very quickly to reusable bags, just because people don't like to buy paper bags. So.
I'm assuming, like, if you're a tourist and you're going into Sam's, you know what I mean, they would provide, he would have to provide some kind of bag, so probably they would go to paper. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
about tourists. More than one retailer on Main Street told me that, yeah, you may be surprised, but I'm all for this because it speaks to who we are
Right.
as a community. We're Brattleboro, we're Vermont, we're supposed to be environmentally conscious, so that's who we should be, so I'm all for it.
Yeah. I just don't want us to say you can't give, I mean, I guess it's, if what we do, we have to be thinking, you know, let's ban plastic bags, but we have to, I guess it's gonna be up to the retailer. If they can't use a plastic bag, they'll have to figure out what to do, and they know who their customer is. So if they don't think, I mean, if it's one thing to go to a grocery store and bring your own bag, it's a different thing to go to Sam's to buy a coat and not have your own bag. You know what I mean? So I think that the onus is gonna be on the retailer to figure out how they make the whole, if not using a plastic bag.
And I think we'll hear from them in the
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know what I mean?
upcoming months.
Because we can't be the one that dictates, well, if you don't use plastic, then you use your paper. To me, we're either banning the bag or we're letting them use it, but we don't have to figure out what the alternative is,
And
you know?
when we're talking about retailers, we're talking about local businesses. The big corporations, Rite Aid and Walmart, they didn't have anything to say about it because they said that the corporate offices have already dealt with this in other communities, and they would just go with the corporate, whatever the corporate office has said in other communities.
I have a comment. I feel like back in one of our, Tim and I's first meetings anyways, Sheila was here and she said, she brought this up specifically and said, I hope you're thinking about how this is going to impact low-income people, and so.
That was sort of my thinking around the paper bag. I just wanted to make sure we were all talking about the plastic bags, so that it would be a free option on the paper bags.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too, that if we went for a ban, I wouldn't want to do that thing where we charge for a bag, like a paper
Do we
bag.
control that though? I mean, if the retailer wants
I
to
don't
charge
know.
for a paper bag, they can do that.
They can do that, yeah. But they don't.
Which
as
is,
far as-
which one sec. Franz and then Dale. You had two hands going up at the same time.
Franz Reichsman. I just want to say that I think I'm a fairly typical consumer. And when I go grocery shopping, I always have my reusable bags with me, and I always leave them in the car. And I think I deserve to be punished for that.
Yeah.
And I think my punishment should be to walk out to the car and get the bag.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, there's that. And there's also that this is being done very successfully. I mean, if you go down to Northampton, you don't get a bag, unless you don't get a plastic bag. And it's fine, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, oh, all right, so, okay, I'll deal with it. It doesn't make me not go to Northampton. And the following quote, I have absolutely no reason to believe is true, but I'm going to say it anyway because I read it someplace, and that is by the year 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean.
I saw that too.
So I did not do any research to try to substantiate that, but just the very idea of it is pretty horrifying.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Thank you.
Okay, Dale.
Yeah, I basically got to say what he says. A lot of people have their own bags here. We're a very conscious community. And they have their bags, but they leave them in the car. But the ban might just help them a little more to walk back out, take that punishment, walk back out and get their bags. But it's too easy for them to not leave the store. And when it comes to the poor community, they get a lot of bags from services like at the drop-in center. They had those bags that are, you can keep bringing them with the handles. And they would give them out, and they would get them from up north or wherever they came from, but it came through some kind of state service or federal service. So they have them, and they use them more than you think, because when they use their food stamps, they don't get charged. When they use their cash money, they get charged for each bag. So they don't like getting charged either. So I wouldn't really worry a lot about the people that have less financially, because those bags they can wash and you reuse, and they get cloth bags too. I forgot where they got them. Somebody was advertising, and they had extra cloth bags, piles of them. So they can, our community can get them, and they do. So I wouldn't see worrying about that. We are a conscious community in that if you make this effort, people will try to keep up with it. And there might be a few that not, like the regular retail stores. But the grocery stores are really adamant about recycling those bags. They have them outside, like at Price Chopper. And so they're trying to recycle even those little plastic bags, whatever you can do. So, yeah, we get a lot of bags. A lot of people around here do.
Thank you, David.
I think when Sheila raised that point, the thought that came to me is that it's not just the cost, it's the financial cost. There's also the environmental cost and the toxins and wastes that are part of the production process or the oil processing that is done to create these bags tend overwhelmingly to be dumped into lower income communities. And so solving the problem, that's a really significant problem to solve, and I think that people would probably would be willing to get a reusable bag if it was going to impact that problem as well. So.
Does anyone on the board have any?
So we're not making any.
Well, we got to sort of decide where we want to go. I mean, personally, after reading all this and hearing all this, to me, let's just ban it. Okay. And we can, how Big Brother.
We're done here.
Yeah, well, it's like because we can get so complicated and get so Big Brother and say, well, then they have to do paper, and then you either can't charge, you can charge. To me, we ban it, and then we let the retailers decide, are they going to use paper? Are they going to charge for them? Why do we have to get into that nitty gritty of it? It's not our business to decide how a retailer's going to deal with it.
So
that's sort of where I feel.
We're gonna.
This is just my
That's
opinion.
fine. No, I'm happy with that.
I think if we follow the Patrick's essential considerations here, if somebody wants to make a 3 ml bag to get around the regulation, well,
More power to them.
yeah, let's see how that works for them.
And the other thing I liked is on the very last page of the memo that you did, Patrick, you said, when you talked to some municipalities, and they said, don't do the mistake we did. And primarily what it was is make sure that there's enough public education and you communicate with the retailers. Because if you do it too fast, everyone's going to get mad at you. You know what I mean? So I think, but I think through the hearing process, that will happen, and then we can set something up so that, just like pay as you throw, the world did not come to an end, even though everybody
People gradually figured it out.
Yeah, everybody was predicting Armageddon in this town when we did pay as you throw, and we all survived, and we all figured it out. So, I mean, that's just where I am. It's sort of a similar thing. If everybody gets it, and when you go to a store and there's not a plastic bag there, your life is not going to come to a screeching halt.
Do you need a motion?
What do we need?
Advisement?
Tim needs clarification.
Do we just say sensitive?
I hear a general consensus. I don't hear a unanimous consensus.
Yeah. Tim was
Well, I
looking
guess
like.
I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do about a retailer, which I don't know if it exists in our town, who does charge for, is paper always going to be a free option? Is my question.
No.
Until we start growing hemp.
Yeah, the co-op charges for their paper bags right now.
Right.
If you don't bring your own bag and you want a paper bag, they charge you for it.
I'm not sure, but I thought Price Chopper did too.
I think you get a
think they do.
discount if you bring your own bag of
Well,
Hannaford's. I don't know if it's the reverse.
Co-op gives out free boxes. I always like that. It's an option.
Yeah, but it forces anybody who hasn't thought beforehand to pay. not at a
Right.
place like Hannaford, because the paper is free, but
Yep.
at
For
other
now-
establishments.
For now it is.
Right. The question
For
is,
now
how
it
do,
is.
the question is, how do we tell people they can't, a retailer, they can't charge for a
Right.
paper bag?
Or that we would
Do you know
strongly
what I mean?
prefer or suggest that they don't, or,
I don't think
because
we-
I don't like
think that's
the
not our
charging
business.
thing
Yeah,
either.
that's
I
the
think
hard part.
if people,
That's right.
you know, if people can't remember to bring a bag, or they don't bring a bag, or for any variety
Oops.
of reasons don't have one, they're gonna have to, we're not gonna, I don't think we can dictate to retailers that they have to lose money on these bags, that we're making them use.
And we're not talking big dollars here. We're talking probably a nickel a bag or whatever, you know.
But it's
so
also, the retailer has, if they have a customer base that they're gonna lose because they're charging 5 cents for a paper
Right.
bag,
Right.
maybe they might say like, well, it's not worth paying,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
charging 5 cents
we'll
to
throw
a
'em out.
bag,
Right.
you know? Because it's sort of like, how do we tell them they can't do
But
it?
what that does is that it starts making people use the paper bags, which is going to get into another problem of
We'll
the
deal with that.
environment.
Not if we start growing hen.
Yeah.
I think people are gonna bring their bags.
Right.
And at this point, they fold up so they fit in your pocket. It couldn't be easier.
Just don't leave them in your car.
Does that make sense to you, Tim? Because you
It
still-
does, it does. I'm just wondering if it makes sense that if you're telling people they can bring their bags that they can reuse, what if they're bringing in a bag that doesn't fit into the reusable? What if they bring in a prohibited
Yeah,
bag?
that's weird. That came up
But
sometime early on, I think.
we're reusing it, so they're not giving you a new one.
See, that's where I don't have a problem with it
Yeah.
in that case. So
But
isn't,
that's not a retailer giving a used,
Correct.
single-use bag. We're
Right.
banning that, that's what we're banning. Not bringing a used, a single-use bag in for a second use, we're not banning that.
okay.
You don't
It's
have
not
to
in
put
the
it under your
ordinance.
trench coat. It's-
Well, I think that should be made clear though, that it's
I
not
think
like
people are gonna use it for
possession
their
of a
sweaty-
single-use plastic bag.
It's not
would
in
be
the crime.
A fine, finable.
Single-use plastic bag police.
It's, I
Right.
know we laugh, but
No, I get what you mean, because people, we need to explain that. And
Well, I
that's where
think
the
it's
public
gonna-
education comes
doesn't
in.
everybody have a giant bag of those
I
bags?
do.
Yes.
Yes.
And I use them for painting, they're very handy, by the way.
Yeah.
You wrap
Roll
your
your roller.
roller in it, you know, saves them.
You can get the.
But-
No, you're 100% right.
Okay.
What we need to do is if we do it, explain
But we have
it.
to start somewhere.
Right.
So let's start
Yeah.
with the band, and then we'll see where it goes. What do you
Michael?
think?
I think so.
Well, we'll draft, no, what it is Patrick and Peter and Bob will draft something for us to look at before we
And-
propose it as an ordinance.
Right, and that's something that you'd like to see is going to be an outright ban with the essential
Essential.
conditions, or what was the terminology?
Yeah. With the good advice.
Addressing the essential considerations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Michael.
Michael Bosworth. So the only worrisome thing I've heard, sir, is that is this a San Francisco case where they banned a certain thickness and then the retailers came back with a thicker bag?
It's Austin.
Austin, has that happened widespread? I mean, Great Barrington, I guess, didn't happen. I mean, I guess, is that more prevalent than just Austin, or?
Austin's the only place where I've heard of that happening.
It's a Lone Star thing. Okay, thank you. So do you need a motion from us, or was that, you got a
No,
general sense of
I
what we're
think
looking
because
for?
you're going to act on this twice as an ordinance, it's
Yeah.
sufficient for tonight to know that you'd like to see an outright ban with the essential considerations attached to it.
Okay, does that make everyone feel okay? And then when we see it, we might
Right. Tweak it.
tweak it.
Ban
so-
of the sale.
Yes.
Yes, that's it, ban the sale. No, but they're
We're
not,
not banning the
no,
bag.
it's not really the sale.
Yeah, it's
Because we don't
banning
sell
the
them
free
for
distribution.
Distribution.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. At the point of sale is what it is.
At the point of sale, yeah.
Um,
It's getting late.
It is.
Okay, we've got just a couple more things. Peter's going to talk to us about workers' compensation.
Thank you, I am. I'm going to introduce it, and then I'm going to ask Patrick to go over the details with you, because he shepherded this process. But what I wanted to note is two things. One, that this is a really high priority issue for us. I know it's not a particularly exciting issue, but it's among the improvements that we're making in the just basic daily operations of town government. We identified improving our workers' compensation procedures and reducing the escalation of our workers' compensation costs as a very high priority, both in the comprehensive review of town operations and in the long-term financial plan, because it is an area of town expense that has been increasing faster than almost any place else. The factors there are some things within our control and some things that are outside our control, just out in the insurance marketplace. But we need to do everything we can to positively affect what is within our control. So we identified that, and we recognized that this isn't something that could be solved simply by fiat. That declaring that we were going to follow some different procedures for workers' compensation wouldn't make it so. We have collective bargaining units that we needed to work out this with, make sure that to the degree that the new procedures are different from the what's set forth in the collective bargaining agreements, that the unions agreed to those changes, and we needed to make sure that we had the cooperation of a provider, a medical provider, and our insurance carrier, which is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And so there's been a terrific amount of collaboration required to bring this to be ready for you this evening, and we're very happy to have arrived at that point through that successful collaboration. Patrick can address in more detail what it is that we've all agreed to.
So, good evening, once again. As you can see from the memo, we present a little chart here which demonstrates the cost to the town of Brattleboro for workers' compensation over the last 5 years. And as you can see, during that period of time, it's raised 129%. And so that's really caused some level of alarm with Peter and I, and we've been trying to raise that issue and work towards developing strategies to address that issue, because it clearly is just one of the costs which is utterly unsustainable at its current trajectory. So I'd like to talk very briefly about some of the factors that influence our workers' compensation expenses, and then talk a little bit about how the proposed new procedures seek to address those. So it would appear there are 4 factors that influence our workers' compensation costs, and some of them don't really change from year to year, such as the number of employees or the type of work that those employees perform. Our complement of staff is virtually identical to what it was 5 years ago, and they're all performing the same jobs that they were performing 5 years ago. You know, we've got a fire department, we've got a public works department, we've got a police department, and all the administrative departments. They're performing the same body of work that they were doing 5 years ago. So that really can't be the cause for the increase. There are natural market forces that increase the cost of insurances of all types that are occurring. That certainly occurs in health insurance market, and workers' comp is no different. So that's certainly a small portion of it. But where we think the main body of the reason for our increased expenses falls in what's called our experience rating, or our experience modification rating. And what this is a 3-year rolling multiplier on our workers' comp rates that reflects the frequency and the absolute cost of all of our claims. So this is sort of, you know, how we're doing as a body of employees in terms of safety, and in terms of when someone does in fact get hurt, what are the costs and the sheer volume of the costs that go along with some of our workers' comp claims. Each year, our insurance carrier, and everyone's insurance carrier, identifies the organization's experience rating. A rating of 1 is considered to be normal and is expected for an organization of your size performing the type of work that you perform. Obviously, the target is less than 1. And yet, in each of the last 5 years, Brattleboro has been in excess of 1, and in fact, in a growing excess of 1, no more so than in our current calendar year, where we have a 1.17 experience rating. And so that's really where we think the major influence on our increased costs is coming from. And thankfully, that's also the area that we have the greatest level of control over. So we've been working with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which is our insurance provider, to identify a range of best practices that the town could adopt. And their recommendation includes 4 main points. 1, the timely accident reporting. Second, the use of a designated medical provider by the town, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. A thorough incident and injury review process, and then a transitional return to work program. Each of these steps over the long run will reduce the two key factors that influence our experience modification: frequency of injuries and the cost of treatment for those injuries. Initially, we actually had a little bit of strength in one of those areas. Timely accident reporting has been part of our practice for a good long time, so that's something for which we needn't make any change. And we have always had an incident or injury review procedure, which is performed by a committee of staff, the safety committee, and that's a really good start. But we've sort of beefed that up a little bit, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Perhaps the most complicated piece of the transition was to identify a proper designated medical provider by the town. Prior to Clear Choice Medical opening their program up by the Exit 3 roundabout, there wasn't a local medical provider with an occupational health program that would perform workers' compensation case management. Occupational health at the hospital used to, but they ceased delivering that type of service a number of years ago, and there really wasn't any other medical provider that was interested in taking on this body of work. So the town started looking around for other options. We reached out to Clear Choice after they moved to town, and we asked about the possibility of a workers' comp program. They were interested but hadn't yet developed a program, and so a little ways after we contacted them, they reached back out to us and indicated that they had hired a new RN with a specific occupational health background, and they were looking to design a program, and they were looking to design a program actually that they would take statewide, and they chose Brattleboro as the place to initiate that program, in part because of the town's inquiry, but in part because of other employers that were reaching out seeking this same type of service. So we brought together the folks from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the folks from Clear Choice, and we met a couple of times to talk through how we could work together to identify Clear Choice as the town's designated medical provider. And the benefits that really provides to the town are numerous. One, it provides the town with an objective assessment of an injury that informs the town more about the use of this type of insurance. And secondly, if you think about it, prior to being able to utilize these services, if someone was to strain a back or twist an ankle or something minor like that, we had no choice really but to send them to the emergency room at Brattleboro Memorial. And the cost difference between a short visit to Clear Choice versus a visit to the emergency room is tremendous. And so the emergency room is really for somebody with serious, urgent, arterial bleeding or some other type of cardiac event or very serious medical conditions that need urgent, immediate treatment. But for simple twists and strains and sprains and the like, we think that Clear Choice will provide our injured employees with faster and effective service, and will do so at less cost. That's going to help to drive down the overall cost of our insurance claims, and that's going to help to reduce our experience modification, lowering the cost of future insurance for this type of workers' compensation program. Beyond designating a medical provider by the town, we have further developed the injury and incident review procedure beyond just the committee level, and we're asking the department heads to get directly involved in any workers' comp related injury that results in a loss of time or a loss of work. So if somebody's going to be out because they were injured at work, we would like the department head or their immediate designee to be part of that procedure to identify, is there something else we could have done differently? Is there something we really need to set a new procedure for? Do we need new safety equipment of some kind? Did something break? And to get their involvement in this sort of review so we can hopefully reduce these claims in the future. And then lastly, we've really beefed up and developed our return to work, or a transitional return to work program. This is what's commonly understood as sort of a light duty assignment, but we have built this up a little bit in that we've gotten widespread agreement across each of the collective bargaining units and across town staff that in instances where somebody is injured and they are able to come back to work, but maybe not fully able to do all the responsibilities of their position, it's in all of our best interest to get that person off the sofa and get them back into an employment circumstance. So that may even be outside of their traditional home department. Okay, so we may have a police officer who might not yet be fully up to speed in terms of acting as an independent law enforcement officer, but they might be able to help the finance department file some stuff. They might be able to help the library to shelve books. I mean, there's always work in other departments that can be done. And so we want to make sure that we are bringing people back and off the workers' comp expense as soon as possible for a couple of reasons. One, again, that lowers the cost of our claims for workers' compensation. And secondly, because studies have shown that somebody who gets back to work sooner, even on light duty, in the end returns to full duty quicker than if they were to stay at home for the entire duration of their recovery. So those are the steps that we're taking. We're really excited about this. A lot of people have offered their advice, and that advice has been incorporated into the documents that are before you. We're really excited about this, and we're hoping that we can begin to turn the corner on these escalating costs.
Great. Thank you. There was obviously a ton of work that went into this. So thank you for everybody who was involved, but particularly Patrick. And it saves money, so we're happy. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
I think it's great.
Good work.
Anyone in the public? I could.
Franz Reichsman, I'm going to put on my doctor hat now. Let me say that assessing injuries, as you've described, and with regard to emergency room versus clear choice or versus anybody else for that matter, is not easy. Having spent 30 years in the emergency room, I can say that I was not trained in, what's going to happen to this person who's complaining about back pain in the ER. It's like, well, here's some medication, take it easy, see your doctor next week, stuff like that. So, I never really knew what I should say. Well, you get these forms. Can this person bend over? Can this person pick up 5 pounds? And I would always just write, well, don't do things that hurt. Because, there's really, and anything more specific than that, and I didn't really know what I was telling them. As far as, the initial management, I think clear choice is probably a good choice. But I don't think that's where you're going to save a lot of money. I could be wrong about this, but I think the money savings is going to come in the longer term management, in the transitional program and getting people back to work. And I'm not sure from what you presented how that's going to happen. Who's going to be in charge of that? Now, you said that at Clear Choice there's an RN who's trained in this. I'm wondering if it's not a nurse practitioner, because I can't see where just a standard RN would really be able to provide much. Administratively, yes, but diagnostically, no, and certainly not having prescribing privileges. You'd need somebody at an advanced practice level, and I think at least a nurse practitioner, and I would think, someone with real physiatry experience, physical therapy and rehab experience would be needed, especially for the longer term management. So anyway, those are just the thoughts that were going through my mind as I was listening to what you were saying, and I wonder how that lines up with what you've learned and maybe more specifics about the program and how it would operate in going forward.
Sure. So the one thing I would say, I'm not a medical doctor and I don't have the experience to know who and what type of person with what type of background should be overseeing this. What I do know is that the RN that Clear Choice brought on was not their role is not to see patients. Their role is more administrative and really just about building the occupational health program within the organization. And so I believe that our injured employees would still continue to see doctors, but their oversight and the coordination between information that flows to the town and information that flows to our insurance carrier would be overseen and developed and managed by this particular RN. So I think that's one thing. The second thing, I think you asked, how would a transitional return to work program save us, save money?
I was just saying it would. That's
Yes,
what I think the money
absolutely.
saving is gonna be, not so much in the ER versus clear choice for
Yeah.
the ankle sprain, but rather what happens over time for someone who's out of work.
Right. Right. If we can bring them back and put them into productive use somewhere in the organization, that's going to have a dramatic. You're absolutely right. That's going to have a dramatic impact on the overall cost of the claim. So, is that a fair answer? I agree.
I have a question, but I don't know how to say it politically. So, well, I'm just saying the way I normally say it. I'm just wondering why, and Franz, this kind of goes to your, because it's only an RN or whatever, I'm surprised that the hospital hasn't come forth with some way for them to be our provider, and because they are here in Brattleboro. You know, we have a hospital in town. So I'm just wondering why they haven't, and I don't want to put them on the, Steve, I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it just seems like that would be a natural, and I know you don't want to go to the emergency room, but there may be some way, because they have the medical staff, they have everything that we need there, and, no, go, I'm just,
I've never worked at BMH, so I don't really know, but in Keene, where I did work for 28 years, there was a department of occupational medicine, and there was a physician in charge, and there was, there's a rehab facility there, the Farnham unit, that does both inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation. So they really have the resources to do this sort of work. I don't know what they have at BMH, and it might mean creating a whole new division for them in order to really effectively address this kind of thing.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, they do still have some degree of occupational health. I can't describe exactly what the limits of that are. What I can tell you is that we do have employees who go there for physicals. So there are employees who need to go, police officers and firefighters, and any employee with a commercial driver's license gets a physical every year. Yeah. So there are people who are receiving that service at the hospital. Certainly, I'm not going to speculate on BMH's decision-making one way or the other in terms of what the array of services is that they offer to the community. But I want to shed just a little bit more light on that distinction between the kinds of injuries for which somebody might go to Clear Choice and for which somebody might go to the emergency room. One of the things that we talked about with the unions in the final stages of developing this was there was a concern expressed by employees, are we saying you can't go to the emergency room? And we said, no, absolutely not. In fact, we think that's a judgment call that needs to be made in each individual circumstance by the employee and their supervisor as to which place you go. What we're saying is that in many cases, for the interest of the best interest of the employee and the department and the cost that the town incurs, that it is sufficient to go to Clear Choice. And certainly anybody who's got a more serious injury or needs the higher level of care that can be provided at the emergency room needs to go there. I'm also familiar, not through workers' comp, but through other circumstances, of situations where people have gone to urgent care and the folks at urgent care say, you need to go to the emergency room and send them there. So it's going to be there's kind of a continuum here. What we're hoping is that a great body, most of our injuries are not significant injuries. We unfortunately do have a minority of workers' comp cases where employees are seriously injured and are out for a longer period of time. But most of the workers' comp claims that we have are very minor claims that get over with very quickly, but where somebody just needed to go and be seen to make sure it wasn't a more serious situation. And so we think that the vast majority of our claims can be handled in the urgent care setting, and that'll be best for everybody.
Well, I'm certainly not taking anything away from urgent care. I'm just saying that we have an institution in town that is fully capable of going from A to Z.
Right.
You know, with, oh, okay, you got a sprain, go over here.
Right.
You know,
I agree, it's not the best. It's not the best situation.
Right.
Doesn't seem, but it's
So-
out of our control.
Right, so I'm just wondering, have we approached the hospital and asked them?
We have spoken with the folks at Occupational Health over at the hospital who, as Peter pointed out, continue at this time to provide pre-employment physicals and drug screening for folks who carry a CDL. Prior to my employment with the town, on or about, I think it was somewhere around 2008, 2009, they used to provide workers' comp management for the town, and they ceased delivering that service. The reasons for them doing so and making that change, I have no idea.
Okay. I'm just, you know, after I read that, I was just wondering why we haven't utilized something that's right here in town.
Because they stopped providing the
Because they
service.
said, I know, but I'm just
So-
wondering if we went up to them and said, could you start providing it again?
Yeah.
There's an expense to everything.
Oh, I'm sure
You know what
there
I mean?
is, but,
I don't know what the reason was, but sometimes.
yeah, we've always, you know, but we've always said, you know, there's certain organizations in town that are here that use a lot of our, and in lieu of, and so I'm just, it's a good, it would be a good give and take.
It wouldn't come for free.
Right.
I wouldn't think so.
Right.
Urgent care wouldn't come for free.
Right, but the hospital has more of an overhead because of all the services, so
You're
we're
missing
not.
my point, but that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
It's 9:30. I get your point. You got it? Okay, thanks. Tim got it. We're going out for beer later.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? Would somebody like to make a motion? It's the big, long one.
I'll do that. I move that we authorize Town Manager Peter Elwell to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Brattleboro Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 4439, with the New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 412, with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 98, and with the United Steel, Paper and Forestry, Rubber, Manufacturing, Energy, Allied Industrial, and Service Workers Union, Local 944, for the implementation of revised workers' compensation procedures.
David Scholes has made a motion in regards to an updated procedures and memorandum of understanding with employee unions about workers' comp. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? John?
No, I said aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Patrick. And for anybody else who put this big memo together, it was very good. Now we have a whole bunch of committee appointments. The only contested position is wear of coal. So my suggestion would be, if you guys agree, is that we read through all the other ones and do them in a blanket nomination and then just pull out wear of coal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I don't know if somebody would like to read them, or do you like me to read them all?
Take turns. We could take turns, maybe.
All I thought we'd do is just read them all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just thought we'd take turns reading
Oh,
some.
I'll
just
read
so-
them.
Whatever.
I'll read them. Do you, do I read the
Just
committee
say,
and then the name?
Yeah, what you need to do is go like, I nominate for the ADA committee 2-year
And
terms.
when you,
Julie.
excuse me, when you do names, you may want to go slow because
Yeah.
ASL has to spell
Thank
out
you.
the names.
Okay.
You know?
So I nominate, colon,
I don't think you have to go that far.
To the ADA Committee, Julie Tamler, Gary Schneider, Carmen or Nina Wilson. Carmen is for the 1-year term, and Julie and Gary are for the 2-year terms. To the Arts Committee, for 3 years terms, Diana Abath, Sarah Freeman, Patrick Kitzmiller. For Basic, Brattleboro Area Skate Park is coming. We have no one. Sorry. For the Cemetery Committee.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
No.
Brandy's right.
Yep.
Oh.
For 3-year term, nominate Jane Fletcher. For the Citizen Police Communications Committee, CPCC, would be Ken McCaffrey. For the Design Review Committee, for a 3-year term, would be Teo Seni. Oh, Teo. For the Development Review Board, for 3-year terms, will be Catherine Turnus II and James Valenti. For the Energy Committee, for 2-year terms, we have Tom Franks, Kathleen White, and for a 1-year term, Thomas Finnell. For Energy Coordinator, Phoebe Gooding. Fence Viewers, these are 1-year terms, Lee Madden and Tim Kipp. The Honor Roll Committee, for a 1-year terms, we have E. David Wright and Sherwood Lake Sr. For the Inspector, Lumber, Singles, and Wood, nobody. For the Nelson E. Withington Fund Advisory Committee, for 3-year terms, we have Peter Richards and Richard C. Carroll. For the Recreation and Parks Board, for 3-year terms, we have Ricky Davidson and Ben Underhill. For Rescue Inc. Trustee, a 1-year term, we have Deborah Miller Chapman. For Senior Solutions Advisory Council, a 1-year term, we have Barbara Wood. For Traffic Safety Committee, for a 2-year term, the Citizen Representative, we have Luis Zach. And the School Representative for that committee, which is a 2-year term, Betsy Gentile. And the Tree Advisory Committee, which is a 3-year term, Robert Clements.
Thank you, Brandy. Does anyone have any other nominations for any of these positions? No.
Did we already appoint Phoebe?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's a 1-year term starting July 1st. So we're reappointing her for the upcoming year.
We're letting her keep going. All right, all those in favor of all the nominations that Brandy just made, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to any of the nominations that Brandy made? No. I just want to say one quick thing. Oh, so everybody got appointed, Jan, all those people. Before we move on to Fence Viewer, I just want to thank the Nelson Withington Fund. Corky Elwell and Chuck Cummings have been on that committee forever. So I think we should thank both of them. And as many people probably know, Chuck Cummings passed away. So, you know, I guess condolences to his family and a special thank you to his family on the town's behalf for all the work that he did. Yeah. So, and I think we've got 2 good people to take their place, but they worked hard for a long, long time on that.
They did too.
So thank you to them. The Weir of Cole, we have 2 people, Tim O'Connor and Ryan Stratton. Because I'm related to the Weir of Cole, who wants to get reappointed, I'm not going to vote on this because I don't want to get in trouble either way. And who knows, no one may nominate him. So on this one, all we'll do is take nominations and then we'll do the hand thing. You don't remember how we did this?
We got a suggestion before we do nominations. I think, given the recent new information that came our way about the state, whatever it is, allowing the appointment of more than one person, and given that Ryan Stratton talked about his wanting to engage with the historic past of the town, it seems to me that we could nominate both of them, and then Ryan could engage with the historic past of the town, not just in the position, but in talking to someone who knows about that position and about the town. And at the same time, a gradual transition for a younger person coming in, and somebody that I think, because of his interest and his previous work with the Historical Society, is someone that we want to draw into the system. So I was wondering if we could consider nominating them both.
Yes. Is that against the law?
Jan says.
May I speak?
Oh, please.
When Ryan was here today, Patrick and I researched whether the statutes really do allow for 2 weighers of coal. He researched the statute, I researched the charter, and Patrick found that the statutes, although they do a number of other positions allow for 1 or more, they don't specifically allow for 1 or more weighers of coal. However, that was statutes. However, our charter does allow for 1 or more weighers of coal. So we have conflicting resources.
It doesn't say only one. It just doesn't say one.
No, on other ones it does say it does say 1 or more. This particular one, it just doesn't make reference
But
to
the charter
1 or more.
allows. I'm ready to take a
But the
risk.
charter allows it.
I'm
But the
really
charter
amazed
allows
we have 2 people that want to be
Yeah.
weigher of coal.
I feel like a risk taker right now.
Let's take a risk.
You're really.
Let's go out on a limb.
Yeah.
So we need nominations.
I will nominate Tim O'Connor and Ryan Stratton for a 1-year term as weighers of the coal of Brattleboro.
Is there any other nominations for weighers of the coal? No. All right. All those in favor, and I can now vote. All those in
Yes.
favor of Brandy's motion?
Right, I'm kidding.
All those in favor of Brandy's motion to nominate Ryan Stratton and Tim O'Connor for weighers of coal, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. And I want to give a little
You're
history,
wild.
because my dad could not be
Tim,
here
go to
this
bed.
evening. I hope he's still awake. His father worked as the accountant at Barrow's Coal Company. So that's why my father enjoys being weigher of coal, because it has a history with coal.
So Ryan's
So
going
it's
to learn all of
perfect.
that. We're
Yeah.
breaking the mold here.
That's a little
Weighers.
known, that's a little known fun fact,
It's a great.
which my dad would have shared if he had been here. Now we have to do, I think, these in-house positions, is that correct, Peter?
That's true, yeah, we'll have 4.
I will nominate Peter Elwell, Town Manager, to be the collector of taxes. Yeah. Kathy Barrow to be the pound keeper. Steve Barrett to be the road commissioner. And those 3 positions are 1-year terms. And Brian Bannon to serve as the zoning administrative officer, and that's a 3-year term. Are there any more nominations from anybody else about those positions? All right, all those in favor of the nominations that I just read, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations to all the people that have been nominated, or now voted in, so they're not just nominated. I guess we are done our official business, so I want to thank everybody who is in the room or outside the room watching us on TV or as a rebroadcast.
So moved.
Would you like to adjourn? Yes. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Anyone opposed?
yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ASL.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Chris.